Hey, everybody. Welcome to the AGTV interview series, and I'd like to welcome a very special guest. Everybody say hello to Dr. Steve.
Thank you. Hello, Adam.
Hey, how's it going?
I'll give myself a round of applause.
Nice.
We'll turn into this before this is over. It's so hacky. I'm sorry.
No, I recognize that from your show. That's a good drop. You get some good drops on there. So I want to thank you so much for coming on here today. There was a lot of things that I wanted to talk to you about. Starting right off the bat, medical school, being a doctor. I know that when you go on and you graduate from medical school, you practice medicine. Shouldn't being in medical school, shouldn't that be called practicing medicine?
Bomb, 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 bomb.
No, that's the old joke.
Yeah.
You know, I'm a practicing physician, and when I get done practicing, maybe someday I'll be good at it. And it's a terrible joke. See, I told you that already. I mean, I'm not saying it was a funny joke. It's an old medical joke. Not 100% sure why it's called that. I mean, there is the practice of medicine. I guess there's the practice of law. You have this. I don't know what the root of that is. It's probably some Latin thing.
Yeah.
That where, it means something slightly different than, what we think about as practicing the guitar, where you're doing something away from people trying to get better. There are some of my colleagues that I think are kind of like that, right?
Well, that's actually one of the questions I wanted to ask you. I might as well ask you now, without doxing anybody, without like revealing any type of information. What can you describe to me, like, what is the worst doctor you have ever met in your life?
The worst doctor I've ever met? I haven't really met very many. I've met some oddballs. I had a professor of ear, nose, and throat at the University of North Carolina, and he had an IQ of about 220. And this guy would get up in front of us when we were second year or third year, early third year medical students, and he would show. He was ear, nose, and throat. Back then, if you had cancer of the nose, the nasal septum or the bones of the face, they would just remove them. And he would show us these pictures, and it looked like something from a horror movie. I mean, you could see the teeth from the outside, and you could see the nasal septum and the turbinates and all this stuff, and they just looked like kind of like monsters to us, in our uninitiated phase of practice. And he would stand up in front of this auditorium with about 200 people in it and just yell at us and go, "If you miss this diagnosis, I will despise you." And we were like, "Oh, okay, this guy." And then he'd bring up another slide, and he would say, "If you miss this diagnosis, I will despise you." Well, we had this guy in my class, and we all kind of knew that this guy was like that. He was very intense. He was hilarious, too, in his own way. But he was very passionate about what he did. And we would all sit, 4 or 5 rows back, and then there was him on the podium up on the stage, and then nobody, and then for 4 or 5 rows, and then all of us, the whole class. And I'm sitting there with my best friend at the time, Ty Wadsworth, and there was this guy sitting in the very first row, looking up like this with this big goofy grin on his face. And I'm not going to say his name, but he was somebody that nobody in our class liked. He was what we called a gunner. And a gunner is somebody that would answer questions in a way that would make all the other students on rounds look bad. And there were some worse things. I mean, he did some really sort of rotten stuff to some of my colleagues.
Like pranks or just being an asshole?
No, not just being an asshole. Okay, so I'll give you an example. So there was this guy, and let's call him, I don't know, Paulie B. This guy and I were standing in the lab downstairs. We were newly minted fourth-year medical students. And this guy from our class, Paulie B., comes in with blood that he had drawn out of somebody's arm, because back then we did all the blood draws. And this guy, who I'm not going to say his name, looked at him with this sneer, and he said, "Hey, Paulie B., why don't you let some third year do that? I've been a fourth year for a whole week, and now I'm already shitting on the third year medical students under me." What he didn't realize is that Paulie B had actually been held back a year. So he was a third year, which made it even worse.
Oh, foot and mouth, huh? Shit.
You know, it's just being an asshole, you know, and if you're a fourth year medical student, you're already shitting on your third year medical students. What are you going to do when you're a senior resident? You know, you're just going to be shitting on everybody all the way down the line. And, you know, when people were crappy to me, I remembered that. And so I endeavored not to be that way for other people. When people were crappy to him, he couldn't wait till he could do that to other people. That was the kind of guy he was, right? So he's sitting in the front row and looking up at this professor and with this goofy grin. And all of a sudden, the professor just stops in the middle of the thing and he looks down at him and he goes, "Your beatific smile is insipid, sir." And then just went back to his lecture. And there was a little bit of a beat when we kind of understood what he said. And then it was like, you know, everybody just lost it because it was the greatest slam. "Your beatific smile is insipid, sir." And the whole time he was just, you know, this guy was just trying to kind of brown nose him like, "Oh, I get it." But all these guys, you know, it was hilarious.
It sounds like old English.
Yeah. And when that professor, you know, there's something about dementia. One of the first signs of dementia is when you lose the ability to name things. So if you say, "What is this?" And if they say a watch, that's the right answer. But if you say, I can't think of the word, it's a thing that tells time. Or you hold up a pen and they say, "Oh, that's a thing you write with, but I can't think of the word."
That word should be off the tip of your tongue.
That's right. That's
instantly.
Right. So it's called anomia, and it's one of the first signs of certain types of dementia. And when this professor got dementia, his IQ was so high that his descriptions of things were in outer space. They were still brilliant. And I remember him describing a deck of cards. He couldn't think of the word deck of cards. He called it a concentric stack of thin laminates.
Do you ever suspect that the guy might have been on the spectrum? Because it sounds like he had
maybe a little bit, but we didn't know what that was. He was just very eccentric. And one of the problems with certain forms of dementia is you become more eccentric. So if he became more eccentric, people just thought, well, he's just being more eccentric, you know. So it's very interesting. So, but he was not in any way a bad doctor. It's easier for me to come up with weird doctors than bad doctors.
You're thinking more like an asshole, like in terms of personality.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, we could talk about Dr. Kevorkian.
George Carlin would say in his stand-up act, he would say, "Somewhere out there, somewhere is the worst doctor."
Oh, yes.
Think about it. There's got to be one somewhere, and somebody has an appointment to see him tomorrow. You know, so but then I thought about it and I'm like, you know what? That would be kind of a good question for Dr. Steve, because I'm sure you rub shoulders with a lot of doctors. I mean, you probably tend to socialize with a lot of other people in the medical community.
I know who the worst medical student was. At least according to this story. And this guy was, we were in third year medical school and we were on OBGYN. And so you got to do a lot of pelvic exams, right? And so he was going to do his first pelvic exam on a real live patient and is attending.
A female, I'm assuming, right?
Yes, a female.
Okay, good.
And there is nothing, by the way, hot about it. It's just a part of the body. You know, I know, but people think that, but it's not. It's a part of the body, and there's nothing hot about it.
They don't give you somebody hot to work on.
Weirdo.
No.
Well, even if they do, it's not hot. You know, it's what you do. It's a organ of the body. I mean, or you know, someone's heart hot or their lungs. I mean, it's just another part of the body that you have to examine, and it is sensitive. You got to be careful how you do it. You got to tell people what you're doing before you do it and all that stuff. And you know, obviously, you just don't dive in. And but there's a way to do it, and so that the patient is comfortable. Well, and this was a teaching institution, so the patients came there and knew that they would have students and residents and folks like that doing these exams. So anyway, so this guy gets the lube on his finger and he goes in and he has two fingers in and he's feeling around. Then you do what's called a bimanual, where you push up on the cervix and then you can feel the tip of the the uterus, and then you go over to the side and you can feel the ovaries, then you go over to this side, you can feel the ovaries and all that stuff. And he did truly a complete physical exam. Would also have 2 fingers in the vagina and 1 in the rectum.
Shocker. Yeah.
And then, well, but you can, yes, I know that's really unfortunate, because it's a very effective way to find perirectal tumors. And we actually, when I was a medical student, found one in somebody by doing the rectovaginal exam. Well, anyway, he didn't do that, but he did everything else. And after they were done, the doctor took him outside. And this is absolutely true. It was witnessed not by me, but by people who were in my class that I trust, and including this guy. And when he got out of there, the doctor, his attending preceptor said, "Yeah, pretty good. Next time, though, use a glove." So he had done the whole thing and forgotten to put. He was so nervous he forgot to put a glove on. So there you go. These things happen.
I bet he had to wash his hands really good that day under the fingernails. I mean, stink like that don't wash off,
Well, okay, well, whatever. But it was inappropriate, and it was the worst sort of goof up that I was aware of during my 4 years.
It would have been really funny if he lost his wedding ring, or even worse, his watch.
Oh,
but you
can you
guys never
imagine?
fist people, right? There's no medical reason to fist people.
No, absolutely no.
Yeah.
I had all of my colonoscopies without anesthesia. And because the propofol, which is Michael Jackson's magic milk, it's great. They give it to you for people who are dreading having their colonoscopy or an endoscopy. Let me tell you, these medications are amazing. They'll go count back from 10, and you go 10, 9, 8. This isn't doing anything. And when you're saying this isn't doing anything, it's already done. It's totally, there's no discontinuity. You don't feel like you were asleep. You just go 10, 9, 8. Hey, guys, this isn't doing anything. And it's the procedure's already completed. But, and that's awesome in that regard. The problem for me is that I'm goofy for 2 days. So I do my colonoscopies without anesthesia. It doesn't hurt that bad. There's some pain and some discomfort, but when you're done, you just, fart out all the gas that's in there and then just pull up your drawers and go back to work, right? But the part of it that I can't stand is when they do this, there's always a big giant TV screen, because the scope is hooked up to, a television camera and or a video camera. And when they start to stick the scope in, you see your ass getting bigger and bigger and bigger and filling up the screen until it's completely filled with your anus.
This sounds very gay.
Your hairy, anus. And that part is just, it's horrifying. So that part, I close my eyes during that. But I know the next time I see those nurses or that doctor, that's all they're thinking about when they see me is this guy's hairy anus on the TV screen. I do recommend considering having it done without anesthesia if you think you can stand it.
I feel like the inside of your ass or your colon, it would look like that thing. What is it? That background where Porky Pig, where he goes, "That's all, folks," and it's got the round.
Yeah, it kind of does. It kind of does look like that. That's not a bad analogy. And it's very clean. If you get a good prep, it's clean. It's pink. There's no leathery concretions like the crazy obsessed colon bowel movement people online. If you've ever seen any of those websites, that's a real treat.
We talk about those people who take all the poop yogurt and all they're just obsessed with their toxic
and then
poop.
they'll shit in a bucket, and they'll take a stick and they'll show you, see, look, and what it really is it's all the fiber from whatever that concoction was that they took.
Fucking morons everywhere.
And they'll say, look at what we cleaned out of our bowel. It's like, I don't want to be shitting in a bucket and then rooting around with a stick looking for some, leathery concretions. Anyone that's ever done a colonoscopy knows that that's bullshit, because the colon prep completely cleans you out. You're not crapping out leathery concretions or giant fibrous things. And when they put the scope in from the anus to the cecum, which is on the other side of the colon, there's nothing there. It's just beautiful pink mucous membrane.
Ay, ay, ay.
While you're doing this, you should go,
I will do that before we're done. Okay, can you see that?
Oh wow, that is like Porky Pig. Dun, 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 dun.
That'd be funny.
So is that a healthy one? It looks kind of simple. Looks like
Yeah.
the less wrinkled it is, the better, right?
Fucking wrinkles like an old lady's cunt.
Well, okay, different parts of it have different shapes. So the transverse colon has a different shape from the cecum, which has a slightly different shape from the sigmoid colon and the rectum. So
Oh well, duh. Everybody knows that.
there's a healthy colon right there.
Nice.
Yeah. See, but yeah, your analogy is pretty good. If you just colorize that a little bit differently, it really would look like Porky Pig.
It's probably already a meme.
Well, you think anybody's watching this?
No, but I mean, somebody's probably thought of that before. It's probably, you know what I mean? I would think, because in the internet, every possible thing that has been pretty much, you know what I mean? Every possible thing you can conceive of has probably been done.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think that's cool, though. That's funny. But what are they looking for? Polyps? They're looking for those little white things.
Oh yeah, you look for cancer. You look for diverticuli. Those are little pockets that pooch out of the mucous membrane. You've heard of, I think Brock Lesnar had diverticulitis, and that happens with our sort of traditional American diet where we're straining to have bowel movements and stuff. If you're too young to remember this, but in my day, our bicycle tires had inner tubes in them. So there was an elastic inner tube and then a fibrous or sort of tough outer tube. And every once in a while, the outside tube would split, and then you would see the inner tube sort of blooping out of there. And that's the same structure that you see in diverticuli in the bowel, and the same reason. You get a big giant bowel movement, and then you sort of split the outer fibrous layer of the colon, and the elastic inner layer will bloop out of there and make a little pocket. Those things can bleed, they can become infected and stuff. You could see that when you put the colon up there. It looks like a hole or like a well or something. And yeah, and then you look for tumors and polyps and all that kind of good stuff. And the neat thing is that if you have a precancerous polyp and they catch it early enough, you're cured right then and there.
That's good.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It will not become cancer because they took it out during the colonoscopy. I recommend everybody get their colonoscopy. They're saying now 45 years of age. If you're 45 or older and you haven't had your colonoscopy, you are due. And if you had a first-degree relative that had colon cancer at 30, then you need to get yours done at 40. So you want to do it 10 years. I'm sorry, that's incorrect. I just said it backwards. If you have a first-degree relative in your family that had colon cancer when they were 50, you want to get yours when you were 40. So it's 10 years before the first-degree relative in your family had colon cancer. So it's a variable sort of set of criteria, but the basic thing is if you're at normal risk, 45 years of age.
My dad does currently have bladder cancer, but he's never had colon cancer. Yeah. Okay. So, thank you. I mean, he's getting treatment. I think he's going to be okay, but it's been really rough. He's had other medical problems too. I mean, my dad is kind of a case study. He's had so many issues with his kidneys, with other stuff. I mean, they probably use his ass to invent some new tests up there at Mass General.
You think?
Yeah. Well, that's where he goes a lot. Well, that's where he goes a lot. Yeah, he's in the Boston area. He moved away from Boston, so he probably goes to like the Leahy Clinic in Burlington or somewhere like that. But I actually used to work at Mass General in Boston. I was a support associate in the emergency department. And
really?
That was an intense job. Yeah, that's
a real deal.
It's an amazing hospital, and I've seen so much crazy shit there. And one of the coolest things was that they have the Etherdome there. I guess that's where ether was first used, or maybe it wasn't first used
for anesthesia.
Right. Back when they used to give you ether and saw off your arm in the 1800s. I think it was 1811. Mass General Hospital opened, and the original building, the Bullfinch building. I mean, there's a lot of vibes in there when you're walking through there. I used to go on my breaks late at night. I'd just wander up to Bullfinch and go just hang out at the Etherdome, and you get the feeling there's a lot of ghosts in there, you know.
Well, that's because you're an idiot.
People that died. You know what I'm talking about? Civil War era people who had their arms sawed off and shit like that.
Well, my wife is all about that. You know, she watches these ghost shows. You ever watch the ones where they put the GoPro on their head and they turn the lights off and scare themselves? And, I said, why are you watching this? And she said, well, on the third floor of this hotel, 3 people died, and now it's being visited by poltergeists. It's like, if that were true, every single room in the ICU in the hospital, the paintings would be flying off the wall constantly. It's just bullshit. And there's more death in the ICU than there is anywhere else in the United States. And
really,
1 in 4 to 1 in 5 people die in the ICU or after having ICU treatment.
I would have thought it would be the trauma units, because that was one of the places
they
I
end
used
up
to
in the
work.
ICU.
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense. Yeah, people don't usually just die on the operating table, but I have seen some people die. I have seen some dead bodies. It's pretty fucked up. And remember the first time I was a support associate, so most of what we did was restocking. We were mostly restocking the bays and making sure that like the biomedical equipment was working. We were just there for any type of support that they needed, supply, logistics, whatever. And we would usually just go in and clean the bays up after something had happened. So there's a car crash, there's a person being treated, and this Chinese lady I worked with didn't speak.
Wow, that is very interesting. Please tell me more.
Nobody wants to hear you talk.
So I'll make this a quick story, which is a rare thing. It's a rare
Where
thing
do you
on
think
my
I
show.
got that drop from, by the way? That's
is that one of mine?
Yes.
Holy shit. So anyways, I'll try to wrap this story up. But so this lady, she just says, "Hey, can you come into bay number 1 and help me?" So I walk in. I'm like, "Yeah, no problem." I walk in, and right as I walk in, I see they're basically doing an autopsy, not a real like medical autopsy, but they have a guy who's deceased. You could just tell he's dead. He's got looks like they were cutting open, trying to do surgery on his stomach. It must have been a gunshot wound or something.
Oh, they were doing surgery.
They were before he died, but it looked like they were afterwards. They were kind of, I don't know if they were doing some kind of a post-mortem. I mean, it is a teaching hospital.
They might have been rooting around. If it was a gunshot, they were probably looking for evidence.
Right. Oh, that's probably what it was. But I'd never seen it. That was the first time I'd ever seen anything like that. And I walked right into the bay and I'm like, holy fucking shit, what the fuck? And the nurses and doctors, they were like looking at me like, "Are you okay? Like, is this your first time ever seeing something like this?" And it was definitely took me aback.
Say those words in there.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Yeah, this kid coming in, holy fucking shit.
I didn't plan it out. I wasn't like, fuck, man, what the
yeah.
fuck? But it really did take me aback. It scared me. It's like you just walk into a room and there's a dead body right there. And it's not just like somebody covered in a sheet. It was pretty friggin' graphic, you know?
It is
I'd
amazing.
seen dead bodies, but
I'm a babbling idiot.
It is amazing that the one thing that binds us all together is the fact that we are all going to die. And that's the thing that freaks us out the most.
How cool would it be, though, if somebody could just come back and just say, "Hey, you know, here's what it's like to die." Ooh,
right.
like a
well,
ghost,
then they wouldn't be dead.
Well, they'd be dead,
they'd be alive.
They'd be dead, but able to communicate somehow. You know what I mean? That's
like
what I'm trying to
Houdini
think.
was going to do. So Houdini, you know, he had a code that he gave to his wife and said, if you go to a psychic and they give you anything other than this code, it's bullshit. And they, you know, she went to multiple psychics with, I think Arthur Conan Doyle was involved, you know, with all of their mysticism and occultists and stuff. Nothing.
Really?
So.
That's a smart idea, though. That's a great way to make sure that you never get ripped off by a psychic.
Yeah. You know, people that talk about when they die that they float and they can see, they can see what's going on below them. You've heard of stories of near-death experiences like that.
I've had them.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. But you know what I'm talking about. People, there's sort of this stereotypical thing where I started floating out of my body and I could look down and see all the people working on me, and then I floated up, and then I, you know, did whatever. But then I came back, right, because it wasn't my time. And they did a study on this to see if they could prove that these people were actually remote viewing, because that's what that is, right? And so what they did was they put an electronic sign, and they put it on top of a cabinet that would be easily visible if you were floating on top of the ceiling, okay? And it was lit up. I've got one here in my studio, you know, with the red LED lights, right? Real big red LED lights, and it had a message on it. I think it was 2 words. And if you were floating up there and looking down and seeing all this stuff, there's no way that you wouldn't see this. And so when you came back, you could say, "Oh, I saw this weird word, you know, on this sign up above this cabinet when I was floating around the ceiling." And so they set this all up in an operating room, and several people had near-death experiences over the 2 years that they did this study. Not a single person, could regurgitate. Lots of people had that experience. Nobody saw the sign.
Jesus Christ. So what is this? Is this like the grossest thing that you've ever seen?
Yeah, it's called penile myiasis.
Oh, Jesus. I wouldn't have known it was a penis if you hadn't
Yeah,
told
and
me.
these are maggots. So, yeah, we don't have to do that. That might be too extreme for your audience. This is the other one. It's called Fournier's gangrene.
You know what? I guess YouTube might have I might have an issue.
Yeah.
I could pixelate it. I could pixelate the dick part.
If you would do that,
Yeah,
if you want to talk about it, we don't have to.
I'd rather not pixelate it because it's more graphic that way.
No. But even now, come on.
I used to be obsessed with these type of medical oddities as a kid. I read a book. I don't know if you've ever heard of a book called Cleft Craft.
No.
And it's a book about children. It's like a medical textbook about children. It's just pictures of children and all these case studies of like deformed children from third world countries where they've been exposed to radiation, probably a lot of Chernobyl babies. And I remember seeing like babies without noses, born without eyes. And that shit would always scare the hell out of me.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You've had a lot of experience on the radio with your show. You got your start with Opie and Anthony. You also appeared on Stern a few times, right?
I did. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I did. And I was never in studio with Stern. I did everything remotely. And then COVID happened. And then that was the end of that.
Oh, so you were actually, this was recent. I thought maybe you had been on Stern before.
Yeah, no. The first time I was on Stern, Scott the engineer was still on, and he was talking about how when he ejaculated, nothing came out. So I knew Shuli. Shuli had done an event for us, and Shuli catches a lot of hell. I don't know why. I mean,
I like Shuli. Shuli's great.
Shuli was on that show for a long time, and he made me laugh many, many times. And I knew that he could wrangle sort of crazy people, right? Because he was the whack pack whisperer. So we had a thing called the funniest fucker in the Tri-Cities, which of course when we made the posters had a funniest person in the Tri-Cities. And I needed someone to be the MC, but also we were doing it sort of American Idol style. So they would come up, or AGT style. So they would come up and do their 3 minutes, and then we had to have a host up there on the stage that was sort of wrangling them and making it funny, because if they bombed, which most of them were going to do, he had to turn it into something funny. And then we had 3 judges, and at the end everybody could vote. And I said Shuli Egar would be perfect for this. So I got in touch with him, and back then I could get him pretty cheap. It wasn't bad. I put him up in a nice resort, had kind of a supermodel drive him around, aging supermodel, but still a supermodel nonetheless. Huh? And, he had a driver, and he had a per diem, and he did this show, and he fucking killed, dude. I'm telling you, this guy got up there. Now, okay, admittedly, this was a Tennessee crowd that had been starved for comedy, but he got up, he did 20 minutes at the beginning, then we did the competition. He was destroying the whole time, and then at the end he said, "You guys want to hear some more jokes?" And they were like, "Yeah, fuck yeah." And then he went up and did another 20 minutes, and at the end of it he got a standing ovation that would not stop until he left the stage. So I still don't understand where the Shuli hate comes from.
Do you think it's gatekeeping? I feel like some people tend to gatekeep the Devilverse a little bit since the beginning of the show.
And I get that. Yeah. I get that. And then now he's doing Uncle Rico, which is a great idea. And the thing is that he's got Bob Levy is hilarious.
Oh, I love Bob Levy.
That's a long preamble to how I ended up on Howard Stern. So he would know that if they were speaking about something, he could call me and I would come on. And so he would tell Brent, or he would tell Baba Booey, "Hey, I've got this doctor that can speak to Scott the engineer's ejaculation problem." And then Baba Booey would tell Brent, and Brent would call me. And then I would go on and say, "Yeah, he's got retrograde ejaculation. This happens with diabetics and, certain medications, stuff like that." And it was never a big thing, but I could always plug my show. Because Howard would always, he was gracious. He said, "It's Dr. Steve from Weird Medicine." Of course, it was just, I'm sure, flashed up on the screen. And so we kind of build up to doing a little bit more stuff. And I never I had kind of a thing with the hairy fish because Shuli used to do a medical show over there that was a direct ripoff of my show because the guy that set it up over there told me that it was a ripoff of our show. He was a urologist, so he really didn't have the sort of breadth of knowledge that a generalist would have.
Why is everyone so fucking stupid? Why aren't more people intelligent like me?
We worked up to this thing called the Germius staffer, and so I became friends with Mehmet Walker. And he, I can't remember which one of us had the idea. He may have had the idea. Well, let's do the Germius staffer. What could we do? And I said, well, this is how we would do it. I'll go to the lab and I'll get a bunch of Petri dishes, and we'll get a bunch of swabs, and I'll send you the swabs. You swab all the places and label it. And the thing about Mehmet is he is extremely meticulous. He's very good at his job. He catches a lot of shit too, but for no reason, because he's really good at what he does. He's a hilarious dude too. And so I said, you just swab the places that you want to know what's on there. And then I gave him instructions on how to put it in the tube and break the little ampule of preservative fluid in there.
Fluid. I knew you were going to say it at some point.
Of course, how can you not? Culture fluid. And that would keep the bacteria alive. And then they sent it to me in a cooler. And I still have some of the ice packs that say Stern on them. They even labeled their ice packs. It's hilarious. My innovation in that, well, the first thing was just facilitating it, because then we took them and we plated them out and then grew out the bacteria. And then I sent him the reports. And then I was on the air for a little while explaining the report. And my innovation on this was, I said, do Richard Christie's hands, but also do his ass crack, because his ass crack will be the sort of the control, because we know it'll be full of E. coli, and we'll use that as a control. We'll measure everything against Richard's ass crack. And the funny thing, I thought the funny thing in this bit was Richard's hands had more E. coli on them than his ass crack did.
It seems like that's always how it is. Like, is it just because your ass doesn't touch everything? I mean, like, you shit out of your ass, but you wipe it, and then you're not dragging it across the floor like a dog. So
you must have been at the top of your fucking class.
You know what I mean? It's like your iPad and your keys have more friggin' germs on them than your ass. And
you would still think there would be more fecal coliforms on your ass than on your hands,
right?
If you were washing your hands and stuff,
unless you have a really good bidet or something like that.
Right. Yeah, good point. And in which case you shouldn't have it either place, because you're not touching your ass with your hands.
Right.
But Mehmet had a thing for Gary Delabate, and he focused in on the fact that there was this thing called microsporidium or something, I can't remember which bacteria it was, on his desk. And he wanted to say, oh, Gary's the Germius staffer because that stuff can cause pneumonia. And I was like, that's pretty weak. But he said, well, it's funnier, so we're going to go with it. And during my time on the air, I was like, you know what? That stuff's not that big of a deal. And Mehmet was texting me saying, stop saying that it's not a big deal. I want it to be Gary. And I really had to, I kind of pushed a little bit, saying, really, I think the more outstanding result is the fact that Richard's hands are grosser than his asshole.
Right.
And so when they did the replay, they cut me out of it completely because it didn't fit the sort of narrative that they were going for, which was that Baba Booey was the grossest person, which he was not.
But you're a doctor, though. You kind of have to, don't you have to maintain your integrity? It's one thing if you're doing a comedy bit,
I still contend to this day that's funnier.
Yeah.
And just sort of making up the how virulent the bacterium on Gary's desk was. So
it's not like the Hippocratic Oath says do no harm unless it's hilarious.
Right, that's true too. The first time I was on Opie and Anthony, I did a rectal exam on Pat Duffy. I was really new to all of this. I'd done radio before, but I'd never done this, and particularly not in New York in the Opie and Anthony studio. And they kind of just boxed me into a corner where I couldn't get out of it. And after it was over, I mean, if you want to hear the story how it happened, I could tell you. But
sure.
So I'm sitting there, and it was going pretty well. And it's actually on my Patreon. I put that first appearance on there. It's patreon.com/weirdmedicine. It was fun.
Nice.
I wasn't expecting to be on. I was going to sit in the bleachers and just say, hey, we're doing a show Saturday night. And that was it. Next thing I hear, Opie saying, well, next, segment, Dr. Steve's going to be in here and he's going to answer your medical questions. I was like, what? At that point, I didn't know them. The first time I met them in person, but they were friends from being on the radio. They'd been on a year already, and I listened every single day. So I felt comfortable enough in there that I didn't, make a fool of myself. And at one point, Opie said, are you one of those doctors that does rectal exams on people? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Yeah, do it all the time. He said, well, can you do one here? And I'm like, well, no, I don't have a New York license to practice medicine. And Jimmy's like, oh no, it's just a couple of friends just being silly,
Famous
so
last words, right?
Yeah. So I couldn't argue with that. And I said, well, I would need a glove. I can't do it like I am here. And then Nathaniel Bryan, or I can't remember if Travis was there then, but it was either Than Bryan. I think it was Nathaniel. Goes chunk and sets down a box of rubber gloves, surgical gloves, right next to me. And I'm like, oh shit. Okay. I said, well, I have to have lube. And then chunk right next to me, they go, it's a box of lube. It's like, no, I can't get out of it now. So I ended up doing this prostate exam on Pat Duffy. And at that time, Sam Roberts was an intern and he was videotaping it. And I just said, Sam, just please don't get my face, because I was terrified. And he said, I won't. And he didn't. If you look at the video, you can never see my face in that thing. And I really appreciated that. And I kind of have been, felt very fondly about Sam ever since. And, but after that was over, I thought somehow the AMA is going to come after me because I did a prostate exam on somebody as a goof on the radio. So I said to myself, if anybody ever says anything, I'm going to say, well, I did it to promote, and to normalize prostate exams so that people would not, I did that on Who Are These Podcasts too, when we did in the Nashville show. You were there. And at the end of that, I read that disclaimer about making fun of the morbidly obese and how it's hurtful. And, hopefully today we have shown how these sorts of jokes can be hurtful to people and that words mean things. I actually read the disclaimer. The prostate exam disclaimer was in my head. It was like, if the AMA comes after me, I know what I'm going to say. Of course, they never did. Yeah. I mean, the AMA doesn't go after people for doing prostate exams. In your personal life, in your comedy life, in your radio life, they really don't have jurisdiction, right? No. Yeah. No. Well, good. No. And I promised I wouldn't shame my, my real job and all that kind of stuff. Sure. But that makes sense. Yeah. So what was it like being in the studio with them when you went in there? You sort of became kind of a regular on there. I know you called in a lot, but how often were you in the studio? The thing is that I did not call in for the longest time, but I was in communication with them for a long time. And same with Ron and Fez. I was in communication with them, back channel before I was ever on the air. And because that was just, I ran into Jim Norton on AOL Instant Messenger. And one day, because I used to be on there when the show first hit Sirius XM. So it probably wasn't a month in. And I saw him and I said, hey, I really enjoy the show. He said, are you really a doctor? I said, yes, I am. And he said, well, can we talk about a lump on my scrotum? And I said, sure. So we talked about it. And the next day he went on the air and said, yeah, I was talking to this doctor in Tennessee about this lump on my scrotum. And Anthony says, yeah, because we know all the best doctors are in Tennessee. And I wasn't pissed, but I was like, you sons of bitches. I was laughing. So I called the number. I called the number and I said, what? Yeah, it was funny. What is your fax number? I'm sending them my effing CV right now, my resume. And at that point, I probably had 30 articles in the National Medical Literature. I can't remember if I was editor-in-chief of the journal at that point, but I had a pretty reasonably impressive resume.
I'm so smart. I'm so smart.
But you were worried that they thought that you were the worst doctor.
Yeah, yes. And I was just, they were shitting on me and I was just going, you sons of bitches. So I faxed them my CV and they thought that was funny. And they started calling me for things like, and I've told this story multiple times on different platforms, but they would call me and say, should E-Rock do the cinnamon challenge, for example?
I'm going to just open your mouth. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. Okay. Fuck it off.
E-Rock is a
I said no, and I said I don't think it would be safe, and of course they did it anyway, and it almost killed E-Rock. If you look at the video,
really,
you can Google it. Oh yeah,
I feel stupid. I haven't seen that. I might have heard bits of it, but I don't think so. I think I
almost killed him. You look at that. It was people. They were a little worried for a second. And never had to call the EMS, but so it was that kind of stuff. And I do that behind the scenes. And then, and I got to know, I knew Jimmy the best in the beginning. Then I got to know Anthony, and then I got to know Ope. And then, and then the rest is sort of whatever, history. And one day, Opie was on the channel saying we've got these golden tickets and we're going to give them away. So if any of the pests, which is what they called their audience, if any of the pests have an idea for a show, email it and maybe we'll do something. So back then, Steve Carlisi, who is no longer with us, sadly, he was great because I knew if I emailed him, he would always email me right back. And I quickly sent off an email saying, hey, I've got an idea for a show. We'll just call it, I don't know, Weird Medicine. And we'll talk to your overweight and out of shape, mostly male audience about their medical problems. I can tell some goofy medical stories and some horror stories, stuff like that. He emailed me back, I love the idea. Let me get back to you. And they greenlit it. And my understanding was awesome. Opie was the one that greenlit it. And we did a 90-minute thing on the Saturday Night Virus on October 12th or 13th in 2007, I think. And then I was shitting my pants for real because it was on us. And if I think the reason they put us, they didn't know if I could do a radio show. I think the reason that they greenlit it was because if it was good, they could take credit for it, and if it was bad, they could goof on me for the next
just more content. You'd be right. Like the Scorch instead of weird news, weird medicine.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So I really think that was it because they certainly had faith in me that was not based on anything. It was crazy. And but it went really well when we got in there and started the show. I had 20 topics and I didn't think we had enough topics. It was like I kept talking to PA John, who was my partner on the show. We need to have more topics. And so we start going through these topics. We go to the first break, and Danny Ross came to us and said, you've got to start taking phone calls. And we looked at the phone bank and it was completely full. I think they had 12 or 15 lines, every single one of them full with somebody with some sort of testicle or penis question.
Yeah. Who doesn't have some kind of a medical question that they're freaked out about that they can get advice for? I remember when we were at the Nashville show, I was sitting at your table, and right as soon as we got up and the show was over, there was a guy from a table behind us, and he came over and he's like, hey, is there any chance I could ask you a medical question? You were so cool. You know what I mean? You answered his question and stuff, but I thought to myself, I just thought like everybody must have medical questions for you. Yeah. It must be, who doesn't?
My philosophy on this always was that I was kind of in the depths of a deep depression when Opie and Anthony came on the air in Sirius XM, and they really did lift me out of that. That community of people lifted me out of it. And
that's
Opie
awesome.
And, the audience was just as funny as they were. You had, Steve from Bayshore would always be throwing in, funny lines on the instant feedback and stuff. And, it was really just a fun environment, and it really lifted me out of that. And when I started doing the show, I said, I don't want to ever make anybody feel sorry that they called me or called into the show. So I really endeavored to do that. The only person I've ever shit
DeRosa?
on. No, that was a different situation. that was on their shows, but I'm talking about on my show.
Right.
I never
Oh,
wanted
okay.
anybody- and that wasn't a medical thing. We can talk about that if you want.
I was listening to it the other day again. I've heard it before, but that was so funny.
It was blown out of proportion. I really didn't do very much. All I did was turn the room. But anyway, this might be a place for you to play an excerpt of that. But anyway.
Editor's note, Adam, don't forget to edit that in.
It just sounded like a guy who heard something from somebody and then wanted to spat it because they wanted to sound smart.
Oh, man. Holy fuck.
Dr. Steve
That
with a
hurts.
kidney punch.
Couldn't resist just throwing out a little tweet and didn't realize I was going to have to interrupt rounds.
Interrupt Dr. Steve giving Joe a dignity-ectomy.
I never want anybody to feel bad about calling me or calling into the show. And I always, just to pay kind of the universe back, I guess, for what that community did for me back then in between 2005 and 2007 was I said that, I will always be available to people. If they email me, I'll answer them back. I am not as good anymore at answering the voicemails because the show's changed a little bit. We got a lot more voicemails than I can get to, but the ones that we use, I will text those people back. But if someone emails me or if they approach me at an event or something like that, I'll always take the time to answer the question because, sometimes it takes some courage to come up to a stranger, particularly a physician that's, and somebody that's on the radio to ask them something like that. And I'm always cool about that.
Yeah, there's a lot of doctors that don't like to be bothered, and that's understandable.
Yeah,
I mean, their job is intense, and
they're called assholes.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That was another question I wanted to ask you. I was going to segue into some of the Opie and Anthony stuff, but what do you think it's like being because you're a nice guy, you were universally respected by the Opie and Anthony community.
As soon as you say that, then I won't be. So don't say that.
No, but what I mean is
I've been blessed with good fortune in that regard that I haven't pissed off too many people.
Like when you had your cancer scare, when you had the issue with the tweet with Stuttering John, I remember a buddy of mine, because you had tweeted about it. So you went kind of public with it. You had said what had happened. And my buddy Joe, who was the one who got me into Opie and Anthony, he actually was very active on the Opie and Anthony subreddit like I was. I'm going to ask you about the Opie and Anthony subreddit later, by the way. So just heads up on that.
Okay. That's fine.
But he had asked me, he said, what's going on with Dr. Steve with this?
That's what you're talking about there is.
Yes.
I got that CT scan the day before I went on vacation, and I was convinced I had stage 3 cancer.
It looks like salami.
Well, okay. So this is a cut down this way. Okay. So shoulder to shoulder and through my lungs. So there's the sternum there. This is the right lung, and that's the left lung. So you're looking at me. My front is this way, and my back is behind the screen. And so you're just kind of pushing me through, taking slices. And that thing, shit. That white thing that looks like a sort of a funnel is not supposed to be there. This lung is supposed to look like that one. This lung's totally normal, that one. And when I saw that, I was convinced I had stage 3 cancer. We were going on vacation for 2 weeks. And I told my wife, I'm going to drive you down there, and then I'm going to turn around and come back and have a bronchoscopy and all this stuff. And I was surprisingly sanguine about it. It was like I smoked for a long time. I've always had this sort of Damocles hanging over my head because of all the smoking cigarettes that I did back in the day. But yeah, I wasn't that as freaked out about it as I thought I would be. And at this point, by the way, just I was convinced that I was going to be doing chemo in a week. And having biopsies and going through all that.
That's fucking terrifying.
And I sent the picture to a friend of mine who's a pulmonologist, and he looked at it, he said, that's not cancer. And I'm like, what? He said, no, that's COVID. We're seeing all kinds of this. And
good. So it's nothing, basically. So it's a hoax. No, I'm just kidding.
It was, for me, it wasn't a hoax, but I thought I sailed right through COVID because I had the monoclonal antibodies, and I had been vaccinated the year before. I was in the Pfizer trial, and this was a year later. And my primary care said, there's this hazy place on your chest x-ray. Let's get a CT scan. And that's when all that went down. So it has changed my perspective. You know, when you have a scare like that, it changes your perspective for about 5 minutes. And then you go back to, I'm never going to die again. But
and then you back to fuck Stuttering John.
No, that's
not you. I understand that. My friend had said to me, hey, Dr. Steve had tweeted about his lung cancer and the thing with Stuttering John. Then he had told me, he said, O&A Forums picked it up, that I read something about it on O&A Forums, and I went, uh-oh.
Oh, I didn't know that.
But I went, shit, Opie and Anthony Forums, because those motherfuckers, they're like a step away from Kiwi Farms. Like, I used to be part of that community. I'm really not in it anymore. But like there was one time where Joe told me, my buddy said, he was like, hey, you're on Opie and Anthony Forums radar. And I was like, oh shit. I was,
you
I was
will
terrified.
be now that you're crapping on them. And I'm, just so that everybody knows
I'm not necessarily crapping on them. I'm just saying, I just thought to myself, oh shit, what are they saying about him? Nothing against
well,
you,
that's
but
because you're an idiot.
Oh, you get the Seinfeld theme in there too. That's awesome.
Of course. Where do you think I got that drop from?
Well, you added the Seinfeld theme, no?
No, it was on your original.
Oh,
drop.
that's right. I have two versions of that. I have the quick one where it's just her saying, well, that's because you're an idiot. And then it ends. And then I get the one with
Sometimes
the music.
I'll end it before the music, but every once in a while it's funnier when you have the music.
Anyway,
go ahead.
I have a shortened version of that too. And I have more drops that I got to
continue crapping on the Opie and Anthony forum.
Yeah, I know. That's going to end well for me. They doxed somebody that one of their own, somebody that was
you're making it worse.
I'm sorry. No, they really did. They doxed the guy and he deleted his account. And he just disappeared and went away. And it turns out that he lives near where my buddy is. So my buddy was
really?
like, oh, I could go to his house if I wanted to fuck with him. No,
I'm not. I'm not cool with the IRL stuff. I'm not saying you are either. But,
no, but it happens.
Thing, the light goofing and stuff that, roasting and stuff like that. I think that's fair game.
I think most people can understand the difference between what's comedy, what's kind of goofing, and what's going way too fucking far. And I think that the people who are doing a lot of the going too far shit, I think a lot of the ALOGs and a lot of the people, I don't think that they're serious WATP fans.
I don't know what an ALOG is.
I'm probably not using the term correctly, but it basically means people that fuck with people in real life.
ALOG is a Norwegian musical group.
That's not the one.
Okay, ALOG function returns.
Are they like an ABBA ripoff?
I don't know. The ALOG function returns the natural logarithm of X.
More input.
So I don't know what ALOG is.
It's IRL trolls. It's people who want to fuck with people in real life, fuck with people's livelihood. And in this case, I think that there are third parties. When I say third party, I don't necessarily mean somebody that's in Stuttering John's camp or in the WATP camp, but it could be somebody like Sean Hockey Puck or just a random person who thinks to themselves, you know what? There's people out there that just want attention, or they just realize, oh, you know what? I can go Google someone's address and I can fuck with them. And then if I cancel the person's gig, then everybody's going to be talking about it. And then they can sit at home thinking, I did that. I'm the one who called and canceled their gig. There were people that were telling me that they did it. I've talked about this with Pat Dixon, but there was somebody that was kind of rubbing it in Pat Dixon's face. But it's, you know what? Who really knows who the fuck these people are? But I really think in my heart of hearts, they're just doing it to fuck with people. And I don't really feel like they have an agenda either way. I got these too. I don't know what you think about.
It's backwards. What is that?
I got these too. I don't know. It's backwards. You can't read it?
No, it's forward now. Yeah,
I was upside down. So these are
so Delta 9. Okay, let's talk about Delta 9.
Delta 9 gummies. That's regular street.
Let's talk about medicine. All this other stuff is
cool.
Is political, and I'm really not very political in that regard.
Yeah, I understand.
So regular cannabis plants have a lot of Delta. Wait a minute, was that Delta 9 or Delta 8?
Delta 9.
Well, that's the real stuff.
I'm chewing one right now.
So that's legal where you are, or no?
It is in certain doses. It's 10 milligram gummy. So there's a limit to how powerful the individual gummies can be.
We have the same thing in Virginia. In Virginia, max dose is 10 milligrams, but you can buy as many of them as you want.
I mean, Delta 8, you can get anything you want. I have an amazing flower that's Delta 8. It's chock full of CBD.
Let's talk about Delta 8 a little bit. The reason that you can buy that in places where cannabis is illegal is because the way the DEA works is they have to identify the molecule that they are going to schedule as a Schedule 1. Schedule 1 drugs are, have no quote unquote medicinal purpose, even though heroin has a medicinal purpose. In the United States, it's not marketed that way. So all those drugs are scheduled by the federal government as Schedule 1, but they have to identify the molecule. So marijuana is illegal in many states, and Delta 9 THC, unless it is sold in capsule form and sold by a pharmaceutical company in the form of dronabinol, which is a pill that we use for chemotherapy associated nausea. It's synthesized in the lab.
Is it the same thing as Marinol? I think I remember hearing about Marinol.
It is
okay.
Marinol,
All right.
The difference with Marinol is synthesized in the lab, whereas what you're chewing on right now is extracted from a plant. And that's the difference, because the FDA can only approve a drug if it knows the concentration, and it has to be plus or minus X number of percent, and there can only be one molecule or multiple molecules in a fixed ratio. Okay. So like losartan 50-12.5 has 50 milligrams of losartan in it and 12.5 milligrams of hydrochlorothiazide, that kind of thing. It's got to be that precise. Okay. You can't do that with something that's extracted from a plant. So they made Delta 9 THC extracted from plants illegal. That's Schedule 1. But they didn't do Delta 8 THC. So cannabis plants have tons of Delta 9 and then a little bit of CBD and a little bit of Delta 8. And if you can get, put enough plants in your processor and then extract off the Delta 9 so that the only thing that you're left with are Delta 8 and CBD, you can sell that because the DEA hasn't gotten around to making it illegal. And CBD probably never will be illegal unless some states make it that way. If there's a problem with the manufacturing, people start getting sick, they may do something like that. But so far, because it doesn't make you high, they don't seem to care about it.
I mean, when I take Delta 8, I get really high.
And you can have bad reactions to it because your body is we evolved to have lots of Delta 9 and a little bit of Delta 8. And then when you do all Delta 8, that can cause problems in some people that have lots of Delta 8 receptors.
I've never had an issue with it. Honestly, I pretty much just exclusively use the Delta 8 stuff because it's legal down here. It's actually cheaper. And I mean, I used to live in Vegas. I lived in Boston. I had access to some of the best dispensaries in the world. And,
I think it should be legal everywhere.
Oh, absolutely. Really absolutely. And I think it's ridiculous that I was looking at a map the other day and I was seeing how many states still have it illegal. In South Carolina, it's fully illegal.
Yeah, it was almost legalized in Tennessee. We came this close. And but
what happened? Was it a legislative thing? Was it a vote?
They brought it up and they were really close, but they realized they didn't quite have the vote, so they just took it off the floor. Whether you're Democrat or Republican, that this bunch that has the White House and the Senate and the House would have made marijuana legal across the country. They kind of promised that they would do that at one point. Have you heard anything about them even trying to get it done? I haven't heard anything. I haven't seen any legislature or legislation to that effect. Have you? Are you aware of anything?
No, but I understand that there was a bunch of headlines about how Biden was pardoning a bunch of like federal marijuana offenses.
Good.
And then I had heard some follow-up.
I'm fine with that.
I had heard some follow-up that said that they're not expunging records and that it didn't affect federal cases as opposed to like state cases. It's one of those confusing things where it's like, you know what, if you want a big headline, why don't you come out? You don't have to pass marijuana legalization. Why don't you just come out as the president and say, I support the legalization of marijuana?
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand why you can't just come out and say that. I mean, when Biden came out for gay marriage before Obama did, it was a big deal. You know what I mean? I remember even Obama was kind of pissed. The White House kind of said, hey, he was a little ahead of himself there. You're Joe
I don't
friggin'
remember that, but that sounds right.
This was like 10, 15 years ago, maybe, but you're Joe Biden. Since when do you ever hold yourself back? You say some of the craziest shit. Why don't you just come out and say, hey, we're going to legalize weed and then let them deal with it. You know what I mean? Let the rest of the party deal with the fallout.
I don't know why they're not doing it.
You could tell Biden's at that age where he just doesn't give a fuck about anything anymore. He's sniffing little girls, sniffing little boys. It's like, you know what? Just legalize weed. Just sign an executive order. I don't know.
That part I agree with.
Yeah.
I don't think he can sign an executive order. I don't think it works that way to compel the DEA to deschedule a drug from Schedule 1 to not being scheduled at all. Because if you're not going to require a prescription for it, which they can't, again, the FDA can't do it unless they change the rules because of things we talked about before.
Right.
Because things extracted from a plant, don't have a single drug and they're not in a fixed ratio. But
that's interesting. Yeah.
So they would have to completely deschedule it and then have laws about how you can sell it and how you can't sell it. And all these dispensaries in the country right now, in the states where it is legal, like Illinois and California and places like that, the federal government could at any time say, this is bullshit. We never gave you the right to deschedule a drug that we have scheduled. They could do that. They could do that. But they
did that back in the 90s. I remember when 1996, when Prop 215 passed in California and they legalized, I think it was the first state in my lifetime to legalize cannabis. I know they had legalized, Oregon had decriminalized it in the mid 70s.
Michigan decriminalized it quite a while ago as well.
Oh, okay. Well,
it was a parking ticket kind of thing. I remember.
Right. Massachusetts did that back in 2008, but I think they didn't decriminalize for personal possession and stuff like that, but they did legalize it for medical use only. This was back in 1996. And I remember the federal government conducted many raids for years. There were like pot clubs that were open in LA and San Francisco, and they just kept getting raided. And it was it was kind of a reminder that, it's not just a matter of just waving the pen and passing a law. There's all these different chess pieces that have to.
Well, and then for a while, the dispensaries couldn't get the banks to take their money because it was technically illegal on a federal level, and they were federally insured.
Sure.
And so you couldn't use credit cards, and they had these giant. The stories I heard was they were taking cash and having to like store it in the walls and just plaster it up until they could figure something out, or they would send couriers out. There'd be 6 of them, and one of them would have the money in their briefcase, and the other ones would be empty, just so that they could maybe get somebody to the bank before they got robbed. So it was crazy. Eventually, the bank started, relenting. It's incrementalism. If you work toward that goal, you'll eventually get there. But gosh, it's just taken so long. And for me, why would I? To bring this back to sort of the medical thing, why would I be against giving something to one of my patients, particularly in hospice, that I know there's data that says it would help them, but I can't give it to them because it's illegal, even though there's no downside to it. It's other than there's a black market and people are illegally making money. So take away the black market, put it on, tax it. It's fine. Everybody, I think, is pretty cool with that. And then regulate it so that you're getting the real stuff. Because I'll tell you, Adam, what's happening now where I am is because of the dispensaries in Virginia, they can sell stuff that's indica, and they can sell stuff that's sativa, and then they can sell hybrids. And when you go in there, you say, well, I want something to make me sleepy. And they'll say, okay, well, here's some indica. I want something to make me happy or jazzed up. And here's some sativa. And then, and all everything in between. And the regular street drug dealers are going, God, how do we compete with this? We've just got one giant bale of pot. So what they're doing is they're sprinkling fentanyl in it, or methamphetamine, which they can get tons of. And so if they say, well, I want the one to make me sleepy, they'll give you the one that's got fentanyl in it. And
Jesus Christ.
If you want the one that's going to make you jazzed up, they'll give you the one that they've sprinkled methamphetamine in. And then I see patients coming in and they're having urine drug screens that show THC, which we're sort of expecting, but also street fentanyl or street methamphetamine. And that's one thing. When you make it legal, that shit doesn't happen.
Right. And well, it's a huge problem right now, fentanyl being put into other drugs. And I remember growing up, I used to laugh when they would say, oh, don't smoke pot that you get from somebody because you don't know if it's laced with something, it's got cocaine in it. And I used to think, why would they do that? Why would they want to take an expensive drug and put it inside of a cheap one? But I've had a friend where he picked up some weed from a close friend of his, and it ended up having cocaine in it. And he smoked chronic without even realizing.
We've seen that too.
Yeah,
we've seen that too.
I didn't know that used to probably be more common.
That's why, though, they're
scary.
competing. They're having to compete with places like these dispensaries that actually do have choices of different effects that their cannabis products will provide. So that's where that's coming from.
And that's what I do love. That's the reason why I would rather go to a dispensary and get some Delta 8 stuff that I know it's been lab tested. I like just being able to run to the store and get some weed and move on with my day. And
you don't mind paying the taxes.
It's not expensive. It's $25 for an eighth. It's 50. I just bought a quarter today for $50.
Yeah.
Was it 50? Yeah, $50 for 7 grams. That's a pretty good deal. And the stuff that I have is amazing. It's as far as Delta 8 bud goes, as far as bud that's legal in like southern states, this stuff is fire. It's really great. I mean, I've had better weed before, but it's just amazing. And I just hate, for so many years, I had to rely on even close friends of mine who were pot dealers I hated having
to
go to
cop. You got to cop somewhere.
Well, going to their house and I remember I had a buddy of mine where he was married to a girl who I was friends with in high school, and they had a kid together. They had like children, and I'd go over their house and I felt like such a loser just sitting in their living room, just waiting for my buddy to go get the weed and go get me the
Man,
I know.
You are one pathetic loser.
No, I remember his kid would
That's
just
too obvious. Sorry.
His kid would be sitting in the kitchen, just, Daddy, why does this man keep coming over our house?
Oh, no, that kid knows, because if he was a drug dealer, there were lots of strange people coming.
There's no way they didn't smell the smells. And that whole house just smelled like bud. I mean, it was delicious, but I thought to myself, like, it must be weird being a kid and wondering like why Daddy has all these weird, eccentric biker friends over. And
so when he was a 70s, I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and
nice.
You would go meet somebody in an alleyway and then go, dude, I don't know you, afterward you buy a nickel bag for $5 or whatever. And it was terrifying. And you'd carry it in your, under your scrotum and stuff like that to try to get it home and then hide it and all this. And one of a bucket list was, for me was, I want to be able to buy cannabis products legally before I croak. And then, when I went to the WATP event in Chicago, which I grew up there, until 6th grade. I've been a Southerner. Yeah, I lived in Chicagoland area until 6th grade. And I've been in the South ever since. So
that makes sense, because I never thought you sounded like a Southern person.
I did. Oh, listen, I lived in Appalachia, 4 miles of dirt road to get to my house, and I talked like this. I had that accent, and I lost that accent in broadcasting school, because I went to broadcasting school before I went to medical school, but I could still do it.
I didn't even realize it, but every now and then, like a little bit of my Boston accent will kind of come out, and somebody will just be like, "You're from up north." And down in Savannah, I was surprised, because I figured everybody down in Savannah would talk like people in Louisiana. Nobody has a Southern. No one has a Southern accent down here.
Because it's mostly people who didn't start there. But anyway,
right.
On my bucket list was to buy pot legally. And so I went to a dispensary when I was in Chicago. And one of the first things that I noticed was how clean and clinical it was. And then the smell of pot. And I know nobody was smoking in there, but they were either processing it in the back or they do it on purpose. They're spewing out cannabis, essence. And it smelled so damn good. And it was really cool. I just went in there and I bought 2 things. And I remember telling the woman, I just want to feel like I did when I was a kid, when I would just do, I'd smoke a little pot and then I would laugh my ass off, right?
That's what it's all about, right?
So she sold me this stuff, and it was the biggest mistake of my life. I took it.
What happened?
I took it at 2 a.m. I was in my hotel room, and I went to bed. I thought it would help me sleep, because
was this flour? You bought flour?
No. I bought gummies, and they were hybrid gummies. They were supposed to make me laugh. And I woke up about 4 a.m, high as a kite, and I was so paranoid that I was thinking, oh my God, I've got COVID. They're all going to hate me. I've just given everybody COVID. How am I going to get home? I can't fly if I've got COVID. I'm going to have to fly, rent a car, and then I'm going to have to drive all the way home. And then how am I going to get the car back?
You're on the paranoia merry-go-round.
Yes.
Oh, dude.
And then I kept
like
hearing
me on acid.
I kept hearing disco music below me, and it was probably the air conditioner, but my brain was hearing it as dum, 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 you know,
You can hear your hair growing. Yeah.
Or EDM. I was hearing EDM. It's like, oh my God, these fuckers are keeping me awake. And it wasn't that at all. It was just the drug. And so that day, after I came down, I packaged all the gummies that I had and I put it in a you know, an envelope, and I wrote Mr. So-and-so, the comedian that was at the event that night, and I handed that to him. I said, here you go, you know, knock yourself out.
Nice.
And so I got to do my bucket list, and then I was like, oh shit, you know, sometimes you do your bucket list thing and you go, why did I want to do this?
Yeah.
But it was still cool going and buying pot legally, which was something that we had been fighting for since the 60s.
How many milligrams did you take? Like 50 milligrams?
No. I took like probably 5. I took half of a 10, but it was some hybrid.
That's really low.
It was some
That's a low
hybrid that
dose.
my body didn't like.
Well, you haven't smoked pot in like what, 30 years?
Yeah, it'd been a long time.
That's why. Yeah. I was going to say though, 5 milligrams is not a lot at all.
But
like
you know,
I just took 10 milligrams, which is I took 10 milligrams. That's nothing.
Yeah. You're bragging, but anyway, so now fuck.
So circling back to the Opie and Anthony stuff, what was the weirdest moment for you on that show?
No, absolutely. I know what it was. If we can include sort of my whole experience with Opie and Anthony, was the first time we did Weird Medicine. I'm sitting in Anthony's chair doing a show, and Anthony is sitting there. I walk in and he's like, hey man. And I'm like, what are you doing here? He's saying, no, we're going to watch you do your show. And I'm like, God, oh no.
I would have shit my pants, dude.
I was shitting, but once I got into it, I was concentrating on what we were doing. And I could hear him and his girlfriend at the time, Melinda, laughing, right? So I knew we were doing okay. I was talking about feeling a sack of worms in your scrotum, and what that is, it's a varicocele. It's like a varicose vein and a plexus of veins, and they were reacting to it and stuff. And after the show was over, it went by so fast. He came up to me and he said, that was the best first show that I've ever heard anybody ever do. And I was like on cloud 9, right?
That's awesome.
Totally on cloud 9. And we walk out of the studio, and this guy that I'd brought, his name was Jeremy. And he owned this bulletin board called OA.net or opieanthony.net.
I think I know what you're talking about.
And his screen name was JGNYC. And I didn't know this was going on, but apparently he was sitting out there, and Anthony's girlfriend said, so who are you? And he said, oh, I'm with Dr. Steve. She said, well, would I know you? And he said, yeah, I'm JGNYC. Well, apparently there was a problem there, because Anthony had said that he was going to sue them because they were using the name, because they kept shitting on him, right? That was one of those websites that was kind of more critical of the new incarnation of Opie and Anthony. And I remember a long time before Anthony saying, you guys are using our name, we're going to come after you. Of course, he never was going to. He was just mad.
You sure I was just pissed off that day.
Yeah. And I walk out on cloud 9, right? And as happy as I could be, because Anthony Cumia from Opie and Anthony just said that was the best first show he'd ever seen. And PA John and I are like, we need to get do we need to rent a condo at the top of the Parker Meridian so that when we're up, we thought we were going to be gajillionaires from him. We were in error. And, but I walk out and Melinda is just screaming at this guy, you MF, get the F out of here, and all this kind of stuff. And my friend is looking at me and I'm like, what the hell is going on? And he's just backing up. And there was this big giant guy, and I can't remember his name. And he goes up to my friend and he's like, dude, you just need to leave. And he backs up and gets into the elevator, and I just see his face, and I was like, I don't know. And the elevator door just closed. And then we went back and we went to Sullivan's and we had a great time, but or Smith Bar or something like that. I can't remember where we went. It was one of those places.
It was like the old Sullivan's, like for
yeah. It was an old bar, and we had a great time. But that was the thing, is I walk out of the studio as happy as I could be, and then I was a -1 because it was like, what have I done? I had no idea that these guys had bad blood.
Yeah,
And
that would have made me uncomfortable too.
And she was so pissed. She scared me. You know, she had a little bit of a strabismus, and when she'd look at you, when she was mad, you know, looked like she was looking in all directions at once. I really liked her, by the way. She was fun, but I did not want to be on her bad side, and I felt like, so I didn't know what to, so that was the weirdest moment. It was just poor Jeremy getting kicked out of the studio because he owned a website that they did.
Hello?
Uh-oh, did you freeze?
You did for a second. Your audio cut and you froze, but that's okay. That actually was perfect because it was right as you were ending.
Okay.
You should have done a parody song about it, like Pearl Jam. Jeremy
I was
ruined Dr. Steve's show today.
It was so inside the room. Three people would have gotten it, and I was mortified. So
yeah, no, that's funny though. That definitely sounds like a weird moment.
Yeah, it was. I'm hoping to start doing maybe a video live stream type show in the future, something a little bit more akin to like Jimmy Dore's show.
Nice.
Where he just sits there and does commentary about news things, but it'll all be medical stuff. Like this last show I did, I talked about, can I say the word on your show? Or are you going to get a content strike?
You could say it here all you want.
Yeah. Well, I've never, listen, on my show, I never pushed that. I said that people should take because there wasn't data, double-blind, placebo-controlled data that said, but I didn't shit on people who did. And I really railed against what happened in the media with Joe Rogan when they said he was taking horse paste. And it's like, okay, yeah, you can give this stuff to horses, but it is a human drug that was written for him legally, off-label, admittedly, but legally by his physician. And if you just listen to 30-second sound bites of Joe Rogan, you'll get one impression. But if you listen to the whole thing, he said, I'm a dumbass. I don't know anything. I'm just a curious person, but this was prescribed to me by my doctor. And in my experience, I got better. That's all he ever said about it. And then, you know, Joe Rogan took horse paste. It's been on the market for the longest time. And it has lots of different activities, just like, because people say, well, you know, it's for parasites. Okay. Yeah. Aspirin is for ankle sprains then, right? But it also prevents heart attack and stroke. Two completely different things. And is the same. It has anti-parasitic activities, but it also has anti-RNA vaccine, anti-RNA virus properties that are very well known and very well documented. So the
O&A virus. I'm sorry.
Right. But so the thought that someone might think that might be something we could pull off the shelf and use for this was not crazy. And as a matter of fact, I talked on my channel and I got a content strike for this that I had to fight with YouTube that said that, we were talking about how there were 72 studies on this website called clinicaltrials.gov. These are NIH funded studies on double-blind, placebo-controlled clinical trials. Does have any effect against COVID-19? And those were the studies that were going to tell us whether we should be using this or not. And so recently, on my most recent show, there was a really nice study that showed if you take it with mild to moderate disease, these are people that are not in the hospital, and you take it, it doesn't prevent you from going to the hospital. You know, the same number of people will go if they're taking or if they don't. But being an empiricist and having a scientific background, I looked further into the data that they published. And the one thing that they just glanced over was that in the placebo group, 5 people had thromboembolic events. These are venous thromboembolism. These are people who had clots in their legs or some other vein, and it moved somewhere, usually to the lung, right? So it's a serious complication and a known complication of COVID-19, you know, the inflammation inside the blood vessels. So, and so 5 people had that in the placebo group. only one had that in the group. Now, this is a group of 1,851 people, so it was very rare, but it's like 0.3%, something like that, right? And so I did a chi-square analysis, which they didn't bother to do, and that's a way to look at statistical significance. It was not statistically significant, but it approached statistical significance. And if they had had, a few more hundred people in that study and had the same result, it would have been statistically significant. So maybe you have someone, in the future, if we get good data on this, that you get COVID-19 or other coronavirus infections, and you take the stuff that we know works, like molnupiravir or Paxlovid or IV remdesivir or the other things that we know work for this virus.
And Trump took remdesivir. That's another one that was kind of.
He did, and he also got the monoclonal antibodies.
Oh, okay.
So anyway, so you could give them that, but maybe in someone that is at high risk for thromboembolism, that'd be the people who are immobile and stuff like that, you give them, they have fewer pulmonary emboli, fewer adverse effects caused by, venous clots. And wouldn't that be something? And all these people who were rooting for and all these other drugs that were being pulled off the shelf, azithromycin, also proved not to be that effective, and hydrochlorothiazide, no, it was hydroxychloroquine. All the people that were rooting against it because certain people were rooting for it, I really think they're part of the problem, because if they had had their way, there wouldn't have been any research done, and we wouldn't have gotten this result, which is very interesting.
I think a big crux of this is how it's obviously been so politicized, which is, have you ever seen, obviously COVID.
Never seen anything like it.
COVID made the word unprecedented is now obsolete because of COVID. So COVID is obviously this new paradigm of something that we've never fucking seen before.
Yeah.
But it also seems to me like when something of that magnitude happens, does it surprise you to see how unprecedentedly politicized things get? Does that make sense?
We knew this was coming someday, that there was going to be a global pandemic of some communicable disease. One happens about every 100 years. We used to have the plague of Justinian, and that was really a form of the bubonic plague, and then they had the
1918 Spanish flu. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're not. We're having a conversation. It's okay.
Yeah.
You can interject. The Spanish flu in 1918, which was a different beast altogether. And, which, by the way, the Spanish flu started in Kansas. So that's a whole nother story.
The Spanish people in Kansas?
No.
I'm just being silly.
No, I know.
Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, right. So we knew it was coming. And what we had never seen before, and if you watch that movie Contagion that Steven Soderbergh did, he got most of that shit right. And they had that was a swine flu pandemic, and everybody was in their homes. They were afraid to go out. Then they developed sort of a serum that you could take, and all those things, because we were using convalescent serum. And he got a lot of stuff right about what the reaction was to a global pandemic like that. And but what we had never seen before was the science evolving right before our eyes. So I am not a fan. I'm not a Fauci fan, but I will say that when he
why
said,
not? I'm kidding. Fuck him.
When he said, don't wear masks, it's not going to do any good. At that time, there were a cluster of cases in Washington State. At that point, for me to wear a mask, it was stupid. And then later on, the thing, spread everywhere. And then it did make some sense that you could make an argument that wearing a mask in certain circumstances might decrease the transition of the disease by about 10%, which in places where you didn't have a lot of transmission, that might be enough to decrease the number of cases so that they would start to decline. So there was some reason to do it. But, that's something that we can argue about, mask mandates and all that stuff.
Well, what do you think about the mandates? Do you think the mandates?
I'm not a fan of mandates. I'm not a fan of mandates. Particularly, I was not a fan of the vaccine mandates Because we do, and people, the counter argument is, well, we mandate seatbelt. Sure, we mandate seatbelts all over the country. There are seatbelt laws, and it's mandated that you wear a seatbelt. But if you don't wear your seatbelt, you can still go to school and you can still go to a concert and stuff, and it doesn't restrict your rights of free assembly. What it does is it restricts you know, they can add another charge when you get busted for a traffic violation, right? And we do mandate certain vaccines for people in schools to go to school, and I'm all in favor of that. I mean, dude, the total anti-vaxxers I've got real problems with, because they don't remember what I remember, which was I had a friend in kindergarten who died of the measles before the vaccine came out. That's how old I am.
My aunt had polio. She was in a wheelchair her whole life.
We had all kinds of kids there was a whole classroom where the kids were in wheelchairs from polio. It was terrifying. Rabies was a thing because we weren't vaccinating our dogs back then because we didn't have it.
That's right. Yeah, shit.
I'll guarantee you most anti-vaxxers have never seen a case of diphtheria, but that sucks. And you get a diphtheria shot. Pertussis sucks. We watched Anthony Cumia have it. I mean, he talked about it on the air. He was, out of commission for almost 6 weeks from coughing. So vaccines really have changed our world to the point where people are like, why do we need these vaccines? Nobody ever gets sick from any of these things. Yes, because we're a vaccinated population. You guys don't remember what it was like before then. So I am a fan of vaccines. I'm also okay with when you have herd immunity like we do mostly with things like measles, which has a very high transmission rate. And mostly we have a vaccinated population that if you've got a couple of people that say, hey, I have a religious problem with the way they test these things because they use fetal cells, or I have some other reason that I don't want to take my kid to take the vaccine, I'm mostly okay with that. It's when you have clusters of people, because you've got maybe one doctor in the community that's completely an anti-vaccine person, you get a huge cluster of kids in school that now all of a sudden are getting measles. 1 out of 1,000 of those kids going to die. That's the fatality rate for measles.
There's only a 98% chance that I will live.
I am a fan of vaccines, but I was not a fan of mandating this particular vaccine because it was approved under emergency use, and there were cat coronavirus trials where the cats died.
It's the #1 killer of domestic cats. Meow, meow.
The next time they were exposed to a different coronavirus, and there's 5 different coronaviruses that are endemic in the human population. And when you have these cat trials where they tried to come up with a coronavirus vaccine and they would give it to them, they'd be fine, and then they'd get exposed to another coronavirus and it would kill them. And that is called, immune amplification. If someone came to me and said, I'm concerned about immune amplification, I don't think they've demonstrated that that's not going to happen with this vaccine. Back in the day, I was like, that makes total sense to me. I would support you in not having the vaccine if that was what your concern was, because that was a well thought out concern about that vaccine. Turned out that it didn't happen that way. We've been giving the vaccine long enough that we would have seen at least a couple of cases of that at this point, and we haven't. So, but yeah, I'm not a fan of that. And I always said those vaccine cards, you have to have your vaccine card to get into the concert, man.
I bought a fake one for $80.
Yes,
$80. I got a fake one. And by the way, I just want to point out that I'm not trying to break any laws or anything. I just got it for demonstration purposes, just to show how easy it is to get one and how stupid the whole program is. So if anybody
we had a guy on my show that said that he paid a nurse $100 to squirt his vaccine in a cup and then give him the vaccine card. And my point in publicizing that, and he caught all kinds of hell for that, was that if you feel safe going to a concert because they're only letting people in with vaccine cards, you shouldn't. Because that's not going to protect you.
I heard a story about a guy where he had his vaccine card or something like that, and he went through the line to get tested because it was quicker. Even though he had the vaccine card, he tested positive, and then he just went through the vaccine card line.
Oh Jesus,
you know what I mean?
He got out of that line and went into the vaccine card, and they let him in.
It's proof that the people in the vaccine card line, there's what assurance they have.
They weren't protected, and I had real problems with that. Restricting people's, throwing people out of work. I mean, the number of, I don't know the statistic, but the number of small businesses that just went out and are never coming back, we're still having that problem.
Well, I got into plenty of fights with people about it because I went into plenty of places without wearing a mask and got yelled at, and I walked away, or know what I mean? I got into more arguments than I should have about it. But looking back, I'm glad I stood my ground. I'm glad that I never got the vaccine. And I'm glad that, when I didn't want to wear a mask, I didn't wear one,
Well, my philosophy was, if a business said you got to wear a mask when you come in here, I had a choice. I could wear a mask or I can go somewhere else. I wasn't going to go in there and confront the business owner, so that's a different philosophy.
No,
I went to Florida in the middle of the pandemic, and it was pretty wide open. But if you went to Walgreens, they wanted you to wear a mask. So if I went to Walgreens, I put on a mask. And it's like, I'm not gonna, that's just common courtesy, in my opinion. And I could go somewhere else and get most of the things I needed without doing that if I wanted to. So I could just do business elsewhere. And if I couldn't, then I had a choice.
Down here in Georgia, there were signs almost everywhere that said you have to wear a mask, but there was zero, and I mean zero enforcement. Maybe one or two times where I actually got yelled at. Or there was one time I walked into a Home Goods and they were like, "Sir, sir, sir," and I just kept walking. I just ignored them. They were like, whatever. But for the most part, But I was going to say,
go ahead.
You go ahead.
Where did you learn your trade, you stupid fucking cunt, you idiot? Whoever told you that you could work with men?
I was in the grocery store, and you remember when we couldn't get toilet paper, right?
Oh, yeah. I was out in Vegas. It was scary out there. Couldn't get food, couldn't get toilet paper.
By the way, we bought bidets because of that. Bobby Kelly taught me about the Tushy bidet, which you can get
smart.
At stuff.drsteve.com. You can go over and
get
one. Yeah, well, I mean, it's on my website.
I'll check it out. That sounds good.
It's it's like the best $70 I ever spent. They're really easy to install, but you don't have to use a lot of toilet paper. And if you play Magic the Gathering on the toilet like I do, you don't even have to use any toilet paper, because you just eventually just up through evaporation just dry out and it's perfectly clean. You can't wipe turds off of a hairy ass or fecal matter. It's like trying to just put some Vaseline on a bear rug and try to wipe it up with a paper towel. You're not going to get it. You'll smear it around. But the bidet, it's your sparkling clean. But anyway,
usually what I'll do is I'll either wet my toilet paper, I'll use wet wipes, or I'll just wipe the shit out of my ass, and then I'll just put some lotion on there, and that kind of protects you like Vaseline would, but it also kind of, you know what I mean?
Can you shut up?
Nobody wants to know our anal hygiene routines.
I want to come on, guys. It's time for us to talk about bowel health. Dr. Steve right here.
So anyway, back to my story. I was in the grocery store, and they had toilet paper, and it was like, and I was behind this lady, and we both had masks on, and I'd been vaccinated, and I didn't know what her status. So I didn't give a shit, and I was walking I was behind her, and I was walking abreast of her and going, "Oh, thank God," trying to, bond with her a little bit. Hey, we got toilet paper. And she looked at me and she said, do you want to go first? And I'm like, no, you go. And then she just looked at me and said, well, then get 6 feet behind me. And then just moved on. I was like, okay.
That's
Jesus.
what I'm talking about, though. That's the kind of shit that would set me off, though.
I was like, lady, I'm no danger to you.
Yeah. Well, you know what I feel really bad for is kids who, in all this chaos, we're pushed around, we're told what to do. I think this is going, and this is why when I talk about not wearing a mask and stuff like that, it's not just about my sort of opinion that it's not effective, that it seems like something where the cost of doing it, you're putting more stress on yourself. But there's no way that this pandemic hasn't mentally fucked up a lot of these kids.
Oh, come on. Yeah. It's mentally effed us all up.
And they made it worse than it had to be. I mean, like you said, the pandemic was something that was going to happen, but I feel like we as a society, we could have restrained ourselves and been, it almost kind of reminds me, this is comparing apples to fucking grapefruits, but it's almost the way after 9/11 happened, look at how we overreacted, invaded the wrong country. You know what I mean? It's, people might have mixed opinions about that, but I think most people would probably agree looking back, you know, the Bush administration, 9/11, we overreacted.
Well,
and
we know there weren't WMDs. I mean, I think that there's, no matter what side you're on, I think everybody can agree with that.
But I mean, even the American people, the American psyche, people panicked. They freaked out.
But we did bind together for a short period of time.
A little bit, yeah. Same thing with the pandemic. Remember, we're all in this together. 2 weeks to stop the spread, and then
and for 2 weeks
months later,
we were
fuck
cool.
you Republican motherfucker.
Yeah, for 2 weeks we were all cool with each other.
Yeah,
and then of course it's just like I said with my near cancer experience. You know, I might change my philosophy on life for 5 minutes and I went back to the way I was. I think that's just sort of the way humans are.
Well, you get a way to reassess things, but at the same time, we all kind of fall into our old shitty. I mean, we are creatures of habit, and we do have bad habits sometimes of just being able to forget those, you know, life-changing near-death experience moments.
Well, look at where we are. And this is, I'm going to get philosophical. I think you're going to have to cut this down because this is your listeners are going to think this is the most boring interview you ever
I could even release this in 2 parts.
Well, that's up to you.
I could do a 2-parter.
I mean, that's up to you. But I really, I feel like I'm just droning on and on and on.
You stupid fucking blabbermouth cunt!
No, you're doing good, man. And I can edit stuff down, but you're doing great. No.
Look at where we are. We are on a planet. And have you ever seen the blue
Cosmos?
dot? The blue dot picture that Voyager took, that Carl Sagan had them take. He had them flip the thing around and take a picture of Earth from, you know, near Pluto.
It's the picture from 1972, right?
Yeah,
no. It's that little one where it's a
pale
blue dot.
Dot. That's all you see, a pale blue dot. That's us. And we are circling this star in one arm of the galaxy. And we look out into the cosmos and we see nothing, nobody else. All this time we've been looking for life somewhere else. So far, we haven't seen it. There's no evidence of intelligent life.
Well, enough about Stuttering John. We're gonna get into all the Stuttering John stuff later. So that's the lamest joke, the intelligent life pun.
So I don't disagree. So you look at where we are. And we're circling, and then our galaxy eventually, you know, 1 billion, 2 billion years from now is going to collide with Andromeda Galaxy. And in 1 billion years, our star will be a red giant. And we, maybe 250 million years from now, Earth will likely be uninhabitable as our star goes, you know, through the main phases. It's working its way to being a red giant. And the whole cosmos appears to be ours. Right now, we don't have any evidence that it isn't. And at least this part of the galaxy certainly is. And what in the fuck are we arguing about? Which religious, history is more real? People get pissed because they gave me mild sauce at Taco Bell instead of, hot sauce, what I asked for. And we have we're very, as a species, seem to be kind of small-minded in that regard, that we've got all of this out here, but we're focusing on this.
So you think aliens will think that we're a bunch of assholes?
No, I don't, if there even are any. I mean,
but hypothetically, if there was
what if there
race...
aren't? Why are we arguing over this shit when we should be spending all of our resources getting off this planet? And then we can all be wherever we want to be with the people we want to be. Now, that won't work out for people if all of the right-wingers go to one planet, all the left-wingers go to another planet. Well, then there will be some right-wingers who aren't as right as the other, and they'll eventually differentiate because that's what humans do, right? We group ourselves into clumps. But still, it would be a way for our species. There's super volcanoes. You ever heard of a super volcano? There was a super volcano that sterilized North America, 700,000 years ago. And it was called Yellowstone Caldera, and it's still there. And it's about 100,000 years overdue to do its thing again. So, we've got that. We've got asteroids. We've got pandemics. Like, get the fuck off this planet so that we can have as a species survive long enough.
Or at least have a chance.
to figure out how to go to other universes. Then we can live forever.
Well, I don't know if you can see me very well right now, but I'm actually on the moon. I'm one step ahead of you, buddy.
It's very impressive, and we don't have the lag, the 4-second lag that you would expect.
Maybe the fact that maybe the fact that I upgraded was good. Maybe it works a little bit better. I figure if the quality is better than on previous interviews that I've had, then it'll be worth the $15.
I was making a joke about you being on the moon because with the speed of light, there should be a 2-second lag between us.
Oh, dude, I thought you were talking about the internet. So this just goes to show the disparity, how smart you are and how fucking dumb I am.
No, you just have other things going on.
Yeah! He is retarded.
What, you mean mental retardation?
No, you running
agreed
a show.
you weren't going to talk about that, Dr. Steve. I told you that in confidence.
You're running a show.
No, I know. I'm just kidding. But it's funny. You want to know, as a kid, I was a little bit of a handful as a kid, and I
can't imagine.
I have a psychological evaluation somewhere from when I was 5, right? They had me evaluated, and I, for no reason. I'm sure they just do that for every child. They didn't have any meetings about me or anything like that. But it was so cute because I was reading the report, and the person who was, what do they call the person who does
psychologist or whatever?
Psychologist. Thank you. I know that's another dumb question. I should have. What's like the mind, the like crazy mind person who helps you?
I am too smart. I am too smart. I am too smart.
All right, anyway.
So the psychologist was writing down that the subject was very fidgety. He kept fidgeting and he kept asking me questions, and I had to ask the psychologist, "Am I retarded? Are you guys trying to test me to see if I'm retarded?" And I was reading that and I was like, that's so like cute.
That's actually pretty clever.
It's cute, but at the same time, I'm like, if I were a psychologist, I would be just writing down in my notebook. I'd be like, who the fuck are these kids' parents? You know what I mean?
No.
Somebody is like really.
Well, you probably had ADHD. I had it, but they didn't have that word back then.
What gave me away? Is it my complete inability to focus or to?
Well, I would get 99th percentile on these things called the Iowa Basics, which at that time was what the standardized test that you took. And I'd be getting C's and D's in school. So I was labeled.
Me too.
I was labeled as an underachiever. And so in my family, I was stupid Steve my whole life. And that's not how mean my family was. It was just how smart my family was, that I was actually the dumb one in the family. But
so
I had
you're a
ADHD.
doctor. What if they like rulers of the universe?
What's that?
No, your parents.
Oh, my parents.
Are they like the smartest fucking people on earth? Because
My
you're the
dad
dumb one
was
in your
one
family.
of the smartest people that I ever met. My brother is really smart. He only did an internship. He did 1 year of post-medical school training, and then went into family medicine, which you could do back then. They called it general practice. And he's way older than I am. So at that time, they didn't have the American Academy of Family Practice. They just, you just went into general medicine. And so when the academy was formed, he had to take an exam if he wanted to join and grandfather in. It's called grandfathering in. So he took the exam. Fucking guy made 96 or 98th percentile on the exam. He beat everybody but 2 to 4% of all people who took it. And that includes people that actually did family medicine residencies. So that's how smart he was. My dad invented a press to do this stuff called structural foam. It's you put plastic in, and there's a big auger, and then they would shoot it into a tool and die with nitrogen, and that would make a really strong, and the nitrogen gas would make cells in there, make it very strong, structurally strong. And my dad was one of the guys that figured out how to make computer cases out of plastic, because before that, his time, you had to make computers out of sheet metal because you had to ground to it to keep the radio frequency interference from bothering every other thing around you. Back then, the chips were really dirty.
What's that?
Very good. And that was quick, very, very good. And so he figured out if you sprayed silver nitrate inside a polystyrene case, that grounded to that, it was conductive, it would do the same thing. And so now they could make computer cases out of plastic. And back then it was Victor, RCA Victor was making, computerized point of sale systems. They were some of the first ones, and they were made out of plastic. And when the plastic industry exploded, structural foam exploded after that. And my dad didn't patent it. He just gave it out to everybody. And when he would go to plastic conventions, these guys there would get on their knees and basically blow him because he made their fortunes, So he was a really smart guy too. So yeah, that was
so your dad basically popularized the use of plastic
in computers. Yes,
that's
computers
fucking unbelievable. Yeah. That's fucking unbelievable.
He wasn't the only one. He can't take full credit for it.
But he helped popularize it, which is still pretty cool. I was gonna say, I always wondered why there weren't a lot of wooden computers out there.
That's why you have to have some way to shield. Now you could do a wooden computer, but it would just be a veneer or a facade. You'd have to still have something conductive to keep the radio frequency interference down from the chip. Because these chips now
What's that? What's that? Sorry.
God damn it. These chips, these
What's that?
Integrated circuits operate at gigahertz frequencies, and that's in the microwave region,
Right.
So back then they were in the megahertz frequencies, so they'd mess with TVs or other devices and stuff like that. So yeah, you have to have that.
Can I just say that this is so far, I think this interview is going great. I'm really enjoying talking to you, but I just want to break down the fourth wall for a second and just let you know, I feel like 50 IQ points dumber than a normal.
I'm sorry.
I think I walk around with
that way.
I think I walk around with a little bit of an inflated sense of how smart I am. And thank you for humbling me today, because this is some smart shit that I'll have to I got to read more fucking books, man.
Not at all. I'm just old.
I mean, I was smart as a kid. Like you talked about the 98th percentile or whatever. I actually scored high on those tests too. And I remember I got invited to take some test by Johns Hopkins University. This is when I was in 7th grade. And then it pretty much was all downhill from there academically. I know, there I go bragging. I'm thinking in my head, because it's relevant. So I wanted to, there's no way for me to bring that up without sounding like a complete douche.
Show me your Mensa card.
Oh my God, I know. I deserve that. I really deserve that. Guys, I'm real smart. Can I segue
I started off with water, and this has gone on interminably. And so I'm sure the edited down part will be much less, but I'm working on a little
What's wrong with your pipes, man? That looks like some pretty dirty water.
Little Basil Hayden.
What is that?
So it's
bourbon. Nice. You're a bourbon man. No cubes, no rocks.
No kid. No. What? I'm going to ruin it?
You're a purist, right?
That's what they ask me. If I go to a restaurant or a bar or something, and I don't. If I will drink this, I won't drink very much. I love beer so much that I will slam it, and I'll be the first guy. And everybody who went to the creep off roast, which by the way, we could talk about that if you want to, but anybody went to the creep off roast, saw me make an ass out of myself because I was drinking beer. And when I do, and it's a live concert, I was at the Isotopes concert. That's Carl's band.
Oh, that must have been fun. Yeah. I love this band, dude.
I do too. And and live, they're my favorite live band. And I'm the first one in front of the stage, shouting MF just over and over and over again. That was bad. And so, but if I'm in a bar or something and I get a little, bourbon neat or something, I can, I've been working on this for 2 hours and it's still bad. I just like the taste of it. But they'll ask me, do you want ice in it? It's like, I don't want you to ruin it.
When they ask you if you want ice, you should just smack them, just backhand them.
Well, they're being polite, but it's like, and I'm kind of an ass. I could just say, no, thank you. I do think that ruins it. For me, it ruins it.
Yeah, I don't really know a lot about stuff like that. I mean, I've drank bourbon and stuff, but I don't really know what the fuck I'm doing. I remember the first time I ordered a martini. I was out to dinner with my friends, and I just casually just ordered it like it was no big deal. I'm like, oh, and I'll get a martini. I think my friend got one. So he was always a little bit more sophisticated.
Was it a classic martini?
I don't remember, but he just said martini, blah, blah. I wasn't paying attention.
Okay.
And then I said, I'll take a martini. And then she asked me, well, do you want it straight up or how do you want it? Yeah, and I was like, wait, don't make me look dumb in front of my friends. Just bring me a martini. Any martini is fine. I was like, I felt stupid.
Oh, I had the same thing happen to me. I went to a Japanese restaurant, a real Japanese restaurant with a friend of mine that grew up in Japan. And so
that sounds intimidating. Yeah.
I was going to be cool. Well, I'm a fan of languages. I'm a micro polyglot. I know, a few phrases and about
a micro what? Can you explain that? Not for I understand it,
for
but
you,
for the people
right,
at
for your
home.
audience,
Yeah, the
right,
Jim Norton joke. Yeah.
A micro polyglot. A polyglot is somebody that knows a lot of languages. I'm a micro polyglot in that I'm interested in languages, but I just know maybe 10 words or 50 words or 100 words in a bunch of different languages. And so at that time, I'd been playing around with Japanese, and there was this really pretty waitress there, and I asked in Japanese, I said, choto, and I can't remember how to, watashi wa, I can't remember what water was, water for the table, right? And she looks at me and she goes, yotsu. And I'm like, I don't know. And now,
yeah,
I don't know.
right.
What she was asking me was, you want 4? And I'm like, I don't know what she's saying. So my friend had to jump in, and I was just really humiliated.
She called your bluff, basically.
She certainly did.
I remember my first grade teacher was, she was very Italian, and she told me this story about this guy who was from Italy, and he moved to the United States. He didn't speak a word of English, but he had a friend back at home that did speak English. So he said, how do I order something? Just teach me how to order one thing. So he said, apple pie and coffee, apple pie and coffee. So he would go and he would just order apple pie and coffee, apple pie and coffee. And then eventually he got sick of it. So he went back to his friend, or he talked to his friend. He said, hey, listen, can you teach me something else? I'm getting sick of apple pie and coffee. So then he said, okay, cheese sandwich. So he went to the diner, and then he just said cheese sandwich, trying to order a cheese sandwich. And they said white bread or wheat bread.
Oh.
And he paused, and then he went apple pie and coffee. So that kind of reminded me of that.
Was that a real story, or was that a punchline of a joke?
My first grade teacher, Miss Jilly from Kingston, Massachusetts, she's actually friends with the actor Chris Cooper.
Okay.
And his wife was actually, this is useless fucking information. I'm realizing right when I'm going to cut this out anyways. But
Okay.
his wife was on The Sopranos. She played Christopher Moltisanti's mother.
Oh, really?
They had
Well,
two different actresses play her, but this was
Yeah.
the second one. I guess Sam Roberts does a podcast on The Sopranos now.
Does he?
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to listen to that.
I got to check it out. There's so many fucking podcasts that I want to listen to, and I don't have the time. I got to get caught up. I'm far behind on WATP. I'm far behind on Opie. I'm far behind on Red Bar too, which, talking about Opie, I thought Opie was actually really great on your show. The last time I heard him when he was on Weird
the
Medicine.
Patreon?
He should get a co-host, because honestly, he's good at bouncing things off of people. I know I'm going to get a lot of shit for this, for giving Opie any credit, because a lot of people in my circle, and I've made fun of Opie too, but honestly, I'll give him his due credit. Like, I enjoyed hearing him on your show. It was like he was confident. It was great. Why doesn't he just get a co-host?
Yeah, he's particularly confident with me, because I was always kind of, he was here and I was here, and I still, I have a lot of respect for him, because he did put that thing together originally.
Sure. I mean, I give him all the credit in the world for,
and he made me laugh every day. I know people said he wasn't funny. I disagreed. There was always something every day that he made me laugh. And I watched him work. I watched him on that console when I was there the first time, making sure that all these pieces fit together. And I saw after the show when he was, sort of driving administrative stuff, and I know Anthony went to the meetings. But I mean, they were a troika, and I wanted to have the troika on my Patreon shows. So I've had Opie, Anthony, and Jim, but that show is a thing called the exam room. It's a little different than Weird Medicine. We have celebrities on, then they ask me questions. And I'm always embarrassed to ask people to be on my show. So we haven't had as many as we should have. And I got to get back into that again. But those are really fun, because it's a little different dynamic than a regular interview. Because they're interviewing me, sort of. And then we get off on all these different topics. Like Joe DeRosa, we had him on. It was just open-ended. He could ask us anything, and he ended up talking for an hour about depression. It was really an interesting episode, I think. But wow. Opie, it was funny, because my opening line with Opie was, he went from running one of the greatest radio shows of all time, and now he's doing, comedians in cars, avoiding the meter maid or something like that. I can't remember the joke. It was funnier than that. But he laughed at that, and he said, yeah, how the mighty have fallen. He was very humble, It was fun. We had a good time talking about lots of different stuff. He's a smart guy. He likes to ask a lot of questions and just, has a thirst for knowledge, as does Jimmy, as does Anthony.
My theory about Opie is I think it's unfortunate because I agree with you. And I think I just don't think he's as confident as he used to be generally. I think he wants to be confident with the show, whatever he's doing now.
I'm a babbling idiot.
But I really had high hopes for it. I was listening to his podcast. I remember the very first episode, Carl's Creepy Cabin. I remember listening to it and I was like, oh, this will probably be pretty good.
Right.
And then it just wasn't for me. It definitely wasn't.
Put yourself in his shoes. He has there, you're on the top of the world, you're making millions of dollars, and then this happens. And I think they were looking for an excuse. I don't know. I don't know what happened, but first your partner is gone, whether you were getting along with them or not, you're making great radio. And then now you're in this situation that's kind of uncomfortable. And then you get into this next thing. And now you're doing your own thing. And now that your partner dies, and then your other best friend dies, which was Vic Henley. And that will do something for your psyche. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
And but the thing about Ope that I've always said, and I go way back because I listened to almost every show back in the day. If I wasn't listening live, I was listening on replay. And many, many years ago, he said he had FU money.
I remember that. Yep.
If that's true, and I have no reason to doubt him, he's just doing what the hell he wants to do. This is what he wants to do right now. And later on, if he wants to do something else, he'll do something else. But if he has FU money, he doesn't have to do anything. So I am sort of surprised in a way that he's still doing anything, because I wouldn't if I had FU money. But it's kind of in his blood because he, as he said, he's been doing it since he was 18. And it's kind of, and he does have a following of, people. And he'll freely admit it ain't what he was doing before. When you're getting stars on Facebook, and the same thing as taking home $1 million checks from Sirius XM, and
Right.
he'll says that. But yeah, he was very humble and funny and fun on my show. We had a good time. So, but he also knows
I enjoyed it.
He's in friendly territory with me. I always, when Anthony got fired, I would go on Opie and Jimmy's show, and then I would go over to Roslyn Heights, and I would be on Anthony's show. And I would even say, I can't go see Mommy without seeing Daddy and the divorce.
Right,
you just have to see everybody. And so I've tried to maintain those relationships.
I'm glad you've got a great relationship with both of those guys, and I think that they both genuinely like you for the same reason that you're a good guy.
Yeah,
and I wanted to circle back real quick to I kept going off on a tangent earlier, but I was talking about O&A Forums. I went on there. They're just going to say something weird, just something like psychotic that's not warranted.
Yeah, I've
that
had a
isn't
couple
funny.
Of things like that.
Just some dark, ugly, comes from a dark place shit. Because there are some weird things being said about people on that site.
What the fuck are you talking about?
If I do something shitty, or if I say something stupid and someone calls me on it, I just cop to it, because look, I'm Steve, right? That person is still inside of me. And so when somebody says that what you said was stupid or something, I'm going to probably assume that they were right, that it was stupid. At least to them, it was stupid. And that's the way they see it. And I'm not going to say they're wrong. There are times when people get facts wrong, and I'll bring my receipts when it's factual.
Right.
And, but I'm not one of these people. I know people around me have said, well, you always have to be right. It's like, no, I don't have to be right. I just very often am right because I do my reading. But if I'm wrong, I actually enjoy that more. I like being demonstrated wrong. It happens on my show sometimes. We were talking about popcorn lung the other day, and I got it completely wrong, and somebody called me on it, and I went and did research. Well, fuck, I learned something. I like
that's
to
how you learn.
I like to bring in new information. And so if I'm right about something, then I'm not learning anything. But if I'm wrong about something, then I learn something. And that is true in science too. And, right now there's a discrepancy between the way that they estimate the Hubble constant. There's two different ways to do it, and both of them are completely valid, and they don't agree. And so that means there's new science in there somewhere. The fact that we're wrong about this thing means that when we figure it out, we're really going to learn something. So that's the attitude I have. So maybe that's helped me because, you know, I don't think I'm good at this. I think I'm shitty. I think you should delete this whole thing. I'm just boring.
That's a really forward thinking outlook to have. It's like, trying to think of a way to summarize that is that maybe it's like to know everything is to know that you know nothing.
Ooh.
You know what I mean? Maybe not everything, but it's like, if I could, that's my takeaway from what you said. And I actually think that makes a lot of sense. I think that's great.
Yeah, well, you're not learning anything if you know everything, that's for sure. Well, or if you think you know everything. That's the thing is, I've learned over the years that I could say some things and they're just not right. And I'm not just talking about on my show. One of the reasons why you hear me word searching so much when I'm in that environment, and I'm doing it some here too, is I don't want to say the wrong word. So sometimes I'm scanning 12 or 15 different words to make sure that I'm saying what I'm trying to say right the first time. Because when you're doing a medical show, particularly, and you say the wrong thing, you could cause some problems for people, which is again why we have a disclaimer that says don't do anything.
Yeah,
you know, take everything I say with a grain of salt. Sometimes it's off the cuff. Don't act on anything you hear on my show or here or any other time I'm on without talking over with your healthcare provider. This is supposed to be for entertainment purposes only, you know.
I never thought about that. When you're a doctor, it's almost like everything that you say about medicine to anybody, it's almost like in a sense, it's like you're writing a prescription. And then who are they going to come blaming? Oh, it's you fucking asshole, doctor. Yeah.
Yeah, well, we're always looking for people to blame for things, but we always say that, you know, this is just for entertainment purposes only, you know, don't listen to anything I say. And I've even got this, you know, this is my favorite drop that we have right now is
number one thing, don't take advice from some asshole on the radio.
You know, that's played at the beginning of every question and answer period because Ronnie B is exactly right. Don't take advice from some asshole on the radio or on Adam Goldstein's whatever the fuck this is.
Yeah, right. That's what I should call it. Whatever the fuck this is. And it'll be airing whenever the fuck I feel like it. It should be called the Whenever the Fuck I Feel Like It show. Because my output lately has been so lazy, but I'm looking to change that. But I like that. Whatever the fuck this is with Adam Goldstein and Dr. Steve. And we just take acid and we just have crazy alien conspiracy acid conversations.
I think my acid days are long past, but I appreciate the invite.
Yeah. I was thinking about doing a show with my buddy, Zach Waldman, who does a podcast. He used to be on, he was an intern for Howard. I had him on for an interview. We talked about Stuttering
his name
John.
is familiar to me.
Oh, he's hilarious. You should check out his show if you haven't already. I think you and him would get along really
What's it called?
It's called, I think it's just called the Zach Waldman Show. His show is just free form stream of consciousness. He just loads up the computer. He's got a few friends. It's not a huge show, but he's got a few friends that contribute. And sometimes, a lot of the times I'll go in the chat. I haven't been in there lately, but a lot of the times I'll go in his chat room and it's just a conversation. It's a real, just great conversation show.
I'd like to do something like that.
Yeah. It's in the vein of Joe Rogan. And he's actually, he's friends with Joe Rogan. He has rolled with Joe Rogan and Eddie Bravo. He trains under Eddie Bravo too. So he's, he knows a lot of people in the industry and he's a comedian and a magician. And he's just an all around awesome guy.
He does magic? I started off doing magic. I need to talk to this guy.
You should check out the interview I did with him. Check out his channel.
I sold my magic
Zach
collection
Waldman.
finally.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I've still got a few things, but I had a huge magic collection.
But definitely check out Zach Waldman, though. You'll like him. He's a hilarious guy. He's a great guy to talk to. Really, really cool dude.
Speaking of Rogan, one of my biggest regrets in all of this was back in the day when Rogan was just getting started. You know, he was a big Opie and Anthony fan, and I've met Joe. You know, at one time, I'm sure he's changed his phone, but I had his number. And when he came to Asheville, North Carolina, you know, he called me, and I was sitting in the rows, you know, in our seats, and put him on speakerphones, like, "Hey, Joe," you know, just so that everybody would.
Oh, nice, nice flex, Dr. Steve.
Yeah, a little bit of a flex. It was kind of cool, but anyway,
Mr. Cool Joe Rogan's friend. Oh, I have him on speed dial.
Right. So, well, it was funny. He was supposed to get us tickets and he forgot, but thank God we'd already bought tickets. I said, I figured this would happen because at that time he was known for smoking a lot of pot and stuff. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I said, he just got high and forgot. And he was like, did you get your seats? And I was like, no, but we had seats. It's fine. So, but we got to meet him after and stuff. But, his partner, Brian Redban, who I used to get mixed up. I thought that maybe Red Bar and him were the same at one point a long time ago. Now
I could see why, but he's also on Kill Tony.
Well, just because Red Band, Red Bar, I didn't know.
Right, it's very close.
I thought they were the same. And,
yeah, and he's on Kill Tony as well, right? Isn't he the second mic on Kill Tony? Yeah.
Well, the thing that I like about Brian is anytime somebody brings up female ejaculation, he'll say, Dr. Steve solved this once and for all long ago, because it comes up over and over and over again, whether female ejaculation is a real thing. So Brian is a cool guy. And they had asked me to be on Rogan's show. And I was like, well, at that time he was in LA. I couldn't figure out a time when I could just fly to LA to be on the Joe Rogan show. And I had no other reason to go there. So I never did it. And now he's so huge that, he has real doctors on, like Sanjay Gupta and Savagism and stuff.
You're a real doctor. What you talking about, man?
Well, but I mean,
fuck Sanjay Gupta. Fuck him.
They're way above my pay grade. So I'll never be on there now, but that is a big regret of mine that I didn't take him up on that at the time. Is this ever going to end? We started 3 hours ago.
I still have some other questions I want to ask you. Can we go through them quickly? Because I don't mind. Of course. I know it's like
as long as you leave that part in.
I know a lot of these questions are like maybe they necessitate long answers, but I did have a lot of them. So
I'll answer quickly.
Circling back to Opie. So we were talking about Opie and I was saying how he would definitely do well with a co-host because I thought he did really great on your show. My question to you is, if you were going to pick a co-host for Opie, who would you pick? Who do you think he'd be the most comfortable doing a show with, or the most successful?
I may have to punt on this one. I'm not, who would be the best? Anthony. Not now.
Yeah, right.
Not now. I don't think that would ever happen. Both of them have said that ship has long sailed, but they had such good chemistry together.
What about somebody like Jim Brewer? I always felt like he had a good, I always felt like him and Jim Brewer got along really well, and he seems to feel comfortable with him.
Yeah, I don't know that Jim. I wonder if Jim plays well with others that way.
Are they too similar, you think, maybe?
No,
personality-wise?
Every time I've heard Jim, when he comes on, he monologues. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. He tells these long stories about his dad and all that kind of stuff.
And he's not a radio guy.
Yeah. So,
maybe not.
Question. That's a good question. Brother Wheeze, I don't know.
What about Anthony? What if Anthony, not necessarily saying like Anthony doesn't do good, he does his kind of thing where he kind of has
he's found his voice doing something by himself. But the Artie and Anthony show was a brilliant, just there was a level of crazy there that almost approximated the Ron and Fez days, when it was the height of sort of that mad vibe that they had.
Right.
But because you never knew what the hell was going to happen when he'd put the milk carton up with, have you seen this man? Because Artie was late, and you knew it was going to just come to a huge crashing, whatever. But
I mean, if you factor out Artie's drug problems and the fact that he was in,
it was glorious.
He was in one of the most turbulent times of his life.
Yep.
Then, that was a particularly down
part. And I love Artie, and I'm so glad that he's good now. I'm glad Artie is better, but I like Dave Landau. I enjoyed him on that show.
Yeah,
and he is just he ended up with Crowder. I signed up for that, but what I noticed was Dave hardly ever gets to say anything. There's so many people in there just peppering, stuff. So I don't know what's going on.
Crowder is weird, and I got to tell you, I've watched a lot of these internet shows, these news, political commentary. I'm into all this stuff, and I don't think I've ever once clicked on a Crowder video, and it would appear in my news feed because I was watching a lot of Ben Shapiro videos, so it tends to. You know what I mean? YouTube tends to recommend similar things. So I remember always getting him in my news feed, and something about him just kind of rubbed me wrong. Turn me off.
Where he would go to campuses and he would sit down with somebody and have a conversation and usually get them tangled up on their own words. It was always interesting to watch him do that because it was nice seeing two people that didn't agree with each other on anything have a civil conversation. So I did appreciate those kinds of videos. But I tried to watch the show, and I was just disappointed that Dave wasn't just his sidekick. He was one of 4 sidekicks, and so but I liked him on the show. It's always fun when Kevin Brennan's there because there's always going to be fireworks.
He's such a loose cannon, and that's what's so great about him, especially all the shit that's going on.
I love
now.
those guys. The Gino and Kevin and Bob Levy thing. And Bob Levy, I don't know if you saw that video where
I saw it.
Kevin left, and there was Bob Levy was trying to stop fisticuffs, which Kevin's not that. He's not that stupid. But it was so funny because Levy's just sitting there and Gino's coming in and out. He's like, just take a second. Just take a second. And Bob would say, what? You're going to try to be funny? He was just throwing off, zingers while these 2 guys are screaming at each other. God, it was so funny. Now, that's a man that I don't love too many men in this world, but I love Bob Levy. I just think he's sort of the gentleman, the godfather of this sort of comedy,
He really is terrific, and he seems like a really nice guy. And the funny thing about Bob,
he
Levy,
and his wife is delightful too.
I feel so stupid that I didn't realize that he's really a reverend. All these years, I remember hearing the Reverend Bob Levy. I thought that was just like a moniker for him. I didn't realize it.
Right. Why would you take that on as a moniker?
I don't know. I thought it was like a silly thing. I'm like, what kind of reverend would be affiliated with the Opie and Anthony show? And then it's funny because the guitar rabbi, shout out to the guitar rabbi, by the way. And I'm just getting to know him. So I think his name is Chris. I'm not 100% sure, but he does the Dabblers Unanimous show. He's the host of Dabblers Unanimous.
Oh, that's him. Okay.
Really cool guy. And I guess he really is a rabbi. And it's another one where I was like, it's just weird to imagine a rabbi.
I'm going to assume he's reformed.
He's rabbi. A dabble by. But he's a dabbler rabbi, and I'm like, that's weird. It's weird to think of like a religious figure being like a dabbler. It's just kind of
rabbi means teacher, so he's teaching people things.
Most of these WATP people are like successful. You know what I mean? They're pretty normal, pretty well-adjusted people. I mean, you look at Carl, like he's a guy who's got his shit together.
Okay, spouse calling.
Go ahead and take your medical emergency.
I'll be right back.
Doctor. Yeah, no problem.
I'll be right back. Do you hear reverb?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Can you not hear it in your monitors? Or
I can, but I wasn't sure if you could hear it. I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
Because I'm using a mix minus thing. I just want to make sure it was working.
I've never done that before personally. But
yeah, well, I do it when I do like Count Floyd from SCTV. Ooh, scary kids.
I could do it in post probably. I've never done it before, but I don't have anything for. I'm not really like wired for a live show per se.
Okay.
I guess I could do a stream. It's just I would have to add anything post production would have to be done after any type of effects or anything. You got a nice setup.
I got this mixing board here, and then this computer over here just generates audio. So
nice. You've got a real studio over there, dude.
Oh yeah, have you never seen it?
Do you want me to include this part, like a tour of Dr. Steve's studio? Or?
Well, I could probably do a little better job of it, but
this is cool. You should You should put this on your Patreon.
You think?
Well, it would be cool. I'm sure the fans would, just as like an extra thing, like, hey, check out the studio. Here's what the studio looks like. Unless it's like a security issue.
No.
You don't want people to know like where the safe is and you know what I mean?
That's okay. I got enough guns here that we'll be just fine.
But you know what I mean? I'm talking about like those crazy kids. Remember when that Shia LaBeouf, he did that "We Will Not Divide Us"? He had this flag that was live streamed. It was in Tennessee actually, but he had this flag that was live streamed, and it was this project where he would stand there and he'd go, "He will not divide us. He will not divide us." It was this anti-Trump thing, and then other people could show up and they could politically interact. It was weird, but he was trying to make it so that the 4chan people who were fucking with him online couldn't find it. And they were able to use the stars. They were able to use the stars to figure out where the location was. And then you know what they did? They drove a car around the general area and would beep the horn and listen for it on the live stream. And these autists,
you're close.
These autists were able to triangulate where this flag was, and they figured out, and they captured it, or they found Shia LaBeouf, and they fucked with it. They basically stream sniped him, and that's what the ALOG stuff is. People who they can they could spend 10 minutes and they could find out where you live, who you are, what your credit score is. You know what I mean? It's kind of scary. It's really fucking creepy. And that's
somebody's at my front door. Hang on.
no problem. It's Stuttering John. He's here to kill you.
Yeah, the ALOGs that you were talking about.
So, hey, Dr. Steve, I just want to thank you so much for coming on the show.
Man.
Unfortunately, I wasn't able to get to every question I wanted to ask you, so I don't know if you'd be interested in coming back sometime.
Absolutely.
I'd love to have you back on, and it's been really great talking to you. Is there anything that you want to plug?
And sure. Check out my Patreon at patreon.com/Weird Medicine. It's a different show than what you've heard on the podcast. And it's my wife and I for the most part, and she yells at me. And then we've got, it's sort of like my wife mildly dislikes me rather than my wife hates me. And I give myself, that's what I deserve. And then we also have celebrities call in, and we do this thing called the exam room where they ask me questions instead of me interviewing them. It's kind of fun. And we also put in classic weird medicine bits that you cannot find on the internet anymore. And then the other thing I enjoyed doing is Cameo. They're cheap. It's like $9 or something like that. And I price it really low just to have fun with it. And I'll say fluid to your mama, or you know secretions to your daddy. But I had one the other day where a boyfriend asked me to console his girlfriend, who is, and this was a public Cameo, so I can say this, to console his girlfriend because she'd been taking care of her mother for 6 years, and the mother was now going to have to go to a nursing home, and she was feeling guilty. And so we did it up here, and the whole cast, PA Lydia, Dr. Scott, and my wife, we all, said some nice things about what she'd done over the previous 6 years. So it's fun. So that's cameo.com/Weird Medicine. And we have a blast doing that. I don't make any money off of it, but it's just goofy. So that's cool. About it. And then just, listen to the podcast wherever podcasts are found.
Nice. You want to know, I just wanted to add, to just chime in with for a second, when you started saying Cameo, there was a little bit of a lag with the audio. I don't know if it'll come through in my recording, but there was a little bit of lag with the audio. And for a split second, I thought you were going to say you got into cam whoring.
Don't know what cam whoring. Okay,
that's like girls who like.
I can sort of figure out what that is.
I was wow, Dr. Steve, you're a cam.
Yes, I have an OnlyFans account. It's awesome.
I'm sorry, that's a terrible joke, but for a split second, I was like, oh, maybe that'd be funny to say. But no, I'm sorry, that was a retarded thing for me to say.
How come you suck?
I lack confidence.
No, if you thought I said that, it would be pretty interesting.
Yeah, I'd be like, wow,
Cameo.com/Weird Medicine.
Awesome. All right. Well,
thanks for having me, man.
Hey, thank you for coming on, and it'll definitely be great to have you back on, and I look forward to hearing your shows.
Absolutely. Talk
soon.
soon.
All right. Thanks, man.
See you, man. All right. Bye. Yeah, I appreciate it. Okay, bye-bye.